Dore's probably got like a whole garden in his basement.
I do. I'm transitioning my coffee and my bananas from dirt to hydroponics, and it takes a while.
Wow.
So I start with the soil above the pellets, and then as the roots go down into the pellets, I can get rid of the soil.
Nice.
Is our live stream out? Because it's not showing up on YouTube anymore.
I got it back on YouTube.
Yeah.
Switching over to anything goes, they have to
Let's refresh it.
Oh, okay.
So 518, what was your name again? I'm sorry. What was her name?
Amy.
Amy. Sorry. I'm suck at names. Did we field all your questions and give you some answers, or at least
Sure.
comment to what was needed? Because just to let you know, when I first came here, and I think I was on day 2 or 3 when this started, I don't remember, but I was full of just so much that I wanted to discuss, and and that happens to a lot of people. And then all of a sudden you get it out, and you get answers, and people are with you, and they're kind of on the same boat and plane that you're at, and then all of a sudden you just feel very like the therapy session just is fine. It's good. You feel better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Thank you.
Okay. That's our goal. We'll send you a bill.
Preferably paid with credit card.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna do it. We're just happy you're here. It's cool. And remember to share. I think I'm probably the only person that shares this. I share it on my Facebook, and I share it on my Twitter. So share it when you can.
Oh, okay. I don't do technology. I'm not good at it.
Okay, you can call people. We're okay with the phone call.
Oh, okay.
Amy, I'm totally down with anybody that's not good at technology. I think that's probably a better place to be honest.
I think I had Facebook for like a week, like 7 years ago or something. Like,
you know, that's
like,
interesting.
I don't want for breakfast. Like, I'm not interested.
So where do you get your information?
Jimmy Dore, BBC.
So you do YouTube. You're a YouTuber.
I've become a YouTuber. It used to be BBC. For a while, it was those comedy shows when Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert had shows, and Bush was in office. That was still acceptable to me, and things were going really, really downhill. And you to listen to them make.
Hey, Trox.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Troxney.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so
like a dragon.
So we're going to recommend some people besides us. I recommend, if you've ever heard of Tim Black, H.A. Goodman, Niko House, Jamarl Thomas for sure, because Jamal's been on here. I've invited Hard Bastard, who I freaking dig, and I keep thinking that Kevin's Hard Bastard for some reason, because he cusses just like him. But just remember those names if you can.
Why do you keep thinking I'm Hard Bastard?
Because your cursing is just like him. It's perfect. Do you know who Hard Bastard is?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
No, I discovered Tim just a couple weeks ago, and when he told me he was going on Sam's Theater, I was like, oh, that's a bad idea. Like, immediately.
Yeah, that was.
And David Packman, for example, I did see on YouTube. He did a a video, and then I decided to watch it because I wanted to see what ridiculous thing he was going to say. And he started in this very boring way of praising the Washington Post for its coverage on Russia. And then I immediately turned it off because I was like, okay, I already know how this is going to go. So that, so it's really hard. I mean, I used to depend on things, like I used to depend on the New York Times to give me information. And I realized being a New Yorker, that was always my paper. But I realized just before the Iraq War that the internet, I had a computer at home and it was much slower back then, but I was online looking at the BBC, and it's like, why doesn't anyone else in the world buy this weapons of mass destruction thing? So there's something wrong. Like if England is your greatest ally and nobody else is buying this, what is it that the New York Times is reporting, and why is BBC reporting it so differently? And then I was at work and there was a TV and I saw it, and it said George Bush was on TV, and I'll never forget it. He said, Poland is our greatest ally. And I was like, since when? Like since when? Because I think that was the first country.
Because when I think of great allies, I think of Poland.
He didn't even know the leader's name. He didn't know the leader's name. He didn't know anything. But I vividly remember watching that, and I was like, "There's something wrong." And they had come up with this color-coded system of high terror alerts, and then I knew something was wrong. But I was very. I think I just tried. I tried to forget about it, I guess, for a long time. And then I went to, the comedy shows, Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert, and I would go elsewhere for my news. And all of a sudden you wake up, 15 years later, and your country is really, really hurting because you did that. Because your opinion was so minority then, but it's so clear now, even though the people in power don't want to tell you that that's how it is. So anyway, that's pretty much my story and how I found technology enough.
With your limited resources, though, that's really awesome that she's able to find us. And we are probably more in tune with independent media than most people. I know that Alias is, and Rudkowski is, Forsaken, and it totally sounds like Kevin is. So that's pretty cool that I don't know how you got funneled or directed to us, but it's pretty cool to have you here. Thank you.
Tim Black, I guess, because he's just he doesn't always report necessarily the facts and everything behind it. You have to do your research and you have to find your sources, which is becoming harder and harder, I think, as time goes on, because there's a lot of fake facts or skewed facts out there, and so many and so quickly you can find them. But what he is very accepting, willing to hear all sorts of opinions, very empathetic with people, and so I just think Tim's pretty great.
Yeah, the great thing though is that Ebon Kim, who hosts this program a lot, you should look up what he's done, and he's big, and so am I, and everybody here. We're really big on sourcing, checking, referencing. You can take what we say as a grain of salt, but check it yourself. So we always say, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Isn't that what we say? Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Triggered!
Triggered!
Well, I'm not sure BBC is that good of a news source these days. I mean,
No.
And spreading a bit of
They are getting worse.
propaganda also.
Yeah.
But what is the best source while we're on the topic? Can't really.
In the early 2000s, I think it was pretty respectable. But it too is getting worse.
I was watching Fox News.
Wow.
And the Intercept is also getting bad.
Yeah, just recently.
Shame.
I guess. What do you think about Glenn Greenwald these days? I haven't heard much of him recently, but I hold him in high esteem still.
Generally, I really like him. One thing I was disappointed, and I guess you can always be disappointed in people, especially if you hold them in high esteem, was that he actually believes Citizens United is an okay decision. He thinks that money is political speech, and that's a very hard. And
Hello?
I think we lost you.
But I mean, I love what he does with Snowden or for Assange and trying to call out, because I don't think that our government should be violating the Constitution and us not know about it, and then that be criminal.
Of the Constitution.
But this ACLU, the ACLU, I have a couple things I disagree with them about, or I would find difficult. But the Citizens United and Glenn Greenwald, I don't agree with that.
I pay attention to Counterpunch. I like the Free Thought Project. The YouTubers, I like listening to them. They got some good stuff. Oh, I forgot to mention Debbie, the sane progressive, which gets a little insane at times. I mean, if you watch her, she starts really mellow, and then she accelerates to
I just think she's too sane for most people. Like, there's too much.
Keep it real.
So can't get on board with her.
Too realistic, or just too far away?
No, too. Pure, I guess. If you want to.
I think so. I think she's so spot on that it's too much. It's culturally too much shock for people.
Yeah,
that's what I believe when I listen to her, because she's pretty spot on. HA does kind of the same thing, but then a lot of these guys aren't perfect. They're just average people that have an opinion, and they have, like we do, and then at a certain point, they're going to fumble and bumble. And I know Jamarl has retracted a couple things, and Tim, I believe, is retracted. I mean, look at was it Jordan and Tim Black actually had an outing in regards to the DNC fraud case, and then they kind of came back together and shook hands, which was really cool. But at least we do that. At least if Erik says something, because he's just babbling all the time. If he says something that I'm not going to agree with, I'll call him out on it, and then he would do the same to me for sure. And then I would have to recheck my sources and recheck where I get my information from. And there's not enough of that in the mainstream media. They won't retract. It's just never happens.
Yeah. I think having mental fluidity is very important in some ways. I mean, you want to have your standards, and your standards should really be getting to the truth of any issue. But I think it's always a good idea. I mean, it's hard, especially when you've got people that are reporters, and people on the news, they're performers. There's no doubt about that. And they've got their fair share of ego. And it's to be able to be willing to be flexible enough to see when maybe you believed something and you really thought it was right, you thought it was true, and then later you find out that it's really not. And to be able to say, I'm sorry, I got this wrong, and now I understand where everyone was coming from or where this was coming from. And then, as an audience, you have to be gracious enough to realize when someone's acting out of real truth and reason and not purely out of ego, and be willing to forgive them and say, yes, we're all human and none of us can have the 100% lockdown on the truth at all times. There's no way we can. And you'll see it. The proof is in the pudding. The people that are truly, their hearts are in the right place, their mind is, geared to the truth, it will come out and you'll see it. You can start to see that if somebody's acting from a place of integrity, the proof will be in their reporting. The proof will be in what they're doing. And I don't immediately discount somebody for messing up, especially if they come back and they apologize and they say, yeah, I messed this up. And, here I got back on a better track. That's good. We should be a little bit more forgiving and compassionate with each other, because we're all going to make mistakes, even our friends, even people we really like will mess up.
I missed the apology. Who apologized?
On what? I'm just talking.
Who got together and shook hands?
Maybe, Jordan and Tim.
Yeah, it was the Jordan and Tim Black situation.
On the fraud case.
It was a bit of a fracas.
It's me to be picky sometimes.
But to be honest, as far as I'm aware, Jordan really did start that one.
Yep.
It's a very good thing to try to be picky and selective where you turn to. I just want to shout out Utney. I think Utney is awesome. Little magazine.
I find Donald Trump funny in that aspect. He never apologizes for anything. It's like he has, at this point, offended the whole world and still not apologized to a single person.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't have to apologize because he always does something quickly enough that it's something else to apologize for. But I actually thought when he was electing cabinet officials, it occurred to me that he was actually choosing some of the most corrupt people just around him, because the actual spotlight would be off of him and on them for a little bit. There was actually a thought in my head, and I wondered about it. And one of my least favorite of his appointees was Tom Price, and how this man was in Congress for so many years, trading stocks, medical stocks, as a doctor, and then proposing legislation that would increase his wealth was incredible to me.
Well, to him, I think this is just another season of The Apprentice.
I would agree.
Yeah, sounds about
right. That's it. That's where his mindset is.
Mm-hmm.
The President Apprentice.
Yeah. No kidding. So we will see if there will be a second season or not. Yeah. Hopefully there will not be.
Amy Goodman from Democracy Now!, her heart is always in the right place. And she tries to cover as much as she can on so many different avenues. There's so much going on out there. And she's gotten caught up, interviewing people to where that are, I don't even think deserve to even be on her show, but she gives them the light. And I think that's important. The stage.
That's Eduardo Galeano, and I'm really glad I found that author. It was Democracy Now!, Amy Goodman, 2006.
What did you say?
Amy Goodman's the reason the reason I discovered Eduardo Galeano, the author, Uruguayan author.
Oh, yeah.
It was like I think I might have mentioned before, just that it was like, I remember it was like 13 minutes into the hour, and at that time I listened to, I think it's around the beginning of time I totally didn't watch TV really, maybe a bit of South Park or Daily Show, and I would look forward to me some Democracy Now! In the evening at 6 or 5 or whatever, and yeah, I remember it was like 13 minutes into the hour, and back in 2006, you can look it up. There's like a video or audio all available. But Eduardo Galeano, they're like, we're going to devote the rest of the hour to the Uruguayan author Eduardo Galeano, and I was like, that's crud, you know, that's terrible. What is this? Like, they don't usually do that. I want to hear the different stories and good journalism, and then I ended up finding that awesome author. It was a pretty cool interview too. Yeah.
Who else is good? Kevin. I think his speaker's not coming in. Kevin, do you copy over?
Muted myself. You're talking to me.
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
I knew it was coming.
I mean, you can hear me all right now.
Yes,
right?
Thank you. Yeah, I just thought you were trying to say something. I felt like I was talking over you. Sorry.
No, I was just listening to you guys with the sound muted.
Okay, so when does the anything goes go? I really think it should be anything goes, always goes, because we go in so many different freaking tangents. Am I right? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't know.
I think there's after hours that could be at all hours eventually.
Saturday night lasted long. I think it was Saturday. I woke up at something like 3:41 p.m. on Sunday.
24 1 hour, all hours show.
Ariel.
That's wrong. That would be like, I don't know. Never mind. I'll get lost in the different like possibilities there. But yeah, I think that was like really, I don't know, maybe harder to manage through, like 24. But anyway, it's too idealistic, and never mind.
What was it, James? Can you hear me okay?
No, you were talking and your mic was off.
Oh, okay.
So I was doing sign language to show you. Yeah, that's what I was doing.
I thought you were saying time out, like, shut up, Ariel!
No.
I don't know, but you were asking something about the show and Anything Goes, and how maybe it should just be Anything Goes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because we change it. We go from after hours and we go to Anything Goes. I mean, it's up to Evan. He's the orchestrator of all this.
Maybe my mic was out. No, I was saying I think that Ebon was kind of keeping after hours for just political discussion, and then, or, environmental, global, healthcare, whatever, current events. And then having Anything Goes be for like movies, music, games, etc. Just whatever.
Playing one right here, right now.
Yeah, but the thing is,
multitasking.
But the thing is somebody always brings up something political.
It's hard not to, because
it's hard not to, because it always gets that, which is fine.
I asked several times, but I never was like, it was never made like clear to me like that you weren't supposed to. I mean, I think that's awesome to have a segment that's totally apolitical or non-political. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's important just for people to get it out. Just get it all out. And then it's also good to have intellectuals like Snork and Troxney and I know, don't laugh. And then where'd Elias go? Elios.
He went to bed.
We had to go? Okay. And then, of course, Ariel. I mean, just everybody. I mean, the perspective that comes into this YouTube chat, video chat, is just mind-boggling, but at the same time, very helpful and a bit therapeutic. It's good stuff.
I mean, it's just people balancing ideas. I don't know. It's people, like running ideas across each other, or having conversations that inspire, other ideas or whatever it is. But like I mean, I kind of associate with music. And so I think when there's like one musician sitting down and playing, and then there's like, or whatever, one sound, then that sound like kind of maybe inspires another person to play something with that. I mean, it's kind of like all pretty obvious, but apparent. But you know, I just think that like that's something pretty cool about that. You know, then that whatever you add to it, then kind of musically, you know, when you're playing music, then that might like bounce back and or go back and you know inspire the first person again or another person to maybe you know playing with it. So it's kind of like a giant jump rope. I don't know. I mean,
it's perfect. Yes, I understand that. It's like lyrics. It's like people are adding to the tune and the lyrics of a song. So that's pretty much, I think, what he's saying, right, Ben?
Oh wait, I just anyway, I mean, I just associate it somewhat as like with music and just the idea of the inspiration, the point of that, like what I value in it is that it's being able to sitting around talking to a bunch of people, not to like you know talk too much about like possibilities of the thing or whatever, get too ahead of ourselves, but or not to be too like abstract about it. But you know, it's just there's something to be said about just the provoking nature, the thought-provoking nature of you know of just like different people's angles.
It's about the pursuit of knowledge, and all of us have lived for well at least 20 years, so people have spent their time doing different stuff and learning different things. So you know that there's a lot you can learn from another person.
I mean, I kind of just thinking that I want to start something called like good debate or like something like that, like and just focus on finding conversations that result in like pretty intense debate, so that you know it's concise.
We need some more like real right-wing people in there then.
Right. Yeah,
from AJ's channel, it would be perfect. Just drag them over here.
Right. But I'm just saying, like maybe inside
Sargon. Sargon.
I started to comment earlier that like you know one-on-one conversation. I saw it outlined in some literature somewhere. Like one-on-one conversation, you know, like really is more personal. You know, like and it just goes without saying. But you know, I like sometimes thinking about these types of things more explicitly. Like as in Chinese culture and language, you consider relationships more clearly or carefully, a family a lot more distinctly. I'm sorry, I'm distracted a little bit. I'll get back to it.
Okay, buddy. So there was a guy on Friday night. No, it was Thursday night, and he was a big supporter of the group. It's coming to me. Just say it if you know it. It was 504 was his name, was his area code, and it was the guys that. God damn it. Okay, who are the guys that the Oath Keepers? He was an Oath Keeper, okay, and he was really big on telling us how important the Oath Keepers were, but he said the thing that I pointed out to him. He said hate and hurt and destroy a lot.
I'm sorry. I just was going to say I was worried my daughter was going to fall in the bathroom, actually, so I had to make sure. But like, I just want to say real quickly, though, there's something in literature that was like pointed out, and I liked it. We were just talking about how one-on-one conversation is more like personal and sort of can kind of go into more like is more flexible maybe and can be like more in depth and fine nuance. I don't know, yeah, maybe more personal and confiding or something. But like then maybe you know, a group conversation tends to be like following the rules or following the topic sort of more loosely and being more commonplace, saying more commonplace types of things, or like just I don't know. Yeah, but I think there's a totally a difference. And I mean, obviously, if you're doing something to ultimately make a show out of it, debate, or make good content, good argument, good ideas as the result of like some debates, it wouldn't be like pretentious, you know, possibly like pretentiously, conceivably private or personal in that way. But it is personal. It does work out that way when it's one-on-one. Like, I mean, I would point to Conan's serious jibber jabber, or just any kind of like Larry King-esque kind of the one-on-one, the interview. I'm pretty fascinated with like interviews, and I'm a bad listener, so sort of one goal would be to be an interviewer. Leave it.
So
Well, that's the best position you can be in, to be an interviewer, because then you frame the whole discussion.
Yeah, so you really have to.
You set the frame, and that's what a lot, and you can push on it. That's what a lot of people, interviewers, don't do these days.
But I don't know. I just think good debates. There could be a lot in that, and I know that's when people are really. I think James was saying it earlier. We appreciate people, offering, and we tend to be people that kind of will offer our 2 cents response and stand up for what we kind of think, and that's kind of what it comes down to as well. Just when people are really contentious with you and really, also very vocal and have many things to say, it just really kind of sparks up quite something. But I also think that like I feel like recently I just started to think of it in a way of like thinking that maybe like there's like these gears, like first gear, second, first through fifth, and like that somehow when you're arguing with people that you just get really fast on like this fastest gear, and you're trying to think like on the first gear of like slow and thorough and careful and everything and not emotional, but then you're on fifth gear because you got to like battle and wit and battle and all these things. So it's like I feel like there's like this insanity to also to like talking quickly, and it's probably better when people are cool and calm.
I think so.
Buddy of mine wants me to come up for the weekend and hang out. He's gonna have I'll change the litter box, food and water.
Where's that feedback coming from?
Yeah, no problem. You want to put a thing up or something? Like a piece of paper on the computer, or just watch the ball and make sure we're speaking.
I think James is.
Yeah, it's James.
He's trying to do something. I remember the first night I was on here, I think I talked so much they ended up putting it on as a separate issue.
Yeah, I have plenty of animals, large and small. Yeah, no problem. Did you guys get that? So where'd Ben go?
I didn't get any of that. I heard mumbling.
I know. Look, Ben comes in. He says some pretty interesting things. He jumps in. I think it's important for people to be able to get what they want to get out. I understand. I like the kid because he's thrown in some pretty good stuff at times.
Yeah, he does.
And everybody here, should gets their fill. I don't,
He's really quick on his feet as well. Like my brain is snail mode constantly, so I just can't.
He's going at 160 miles. Yeah, he's moving quick, but every once in a while he'll bring some good stuff to the table, and so I just let him go and do his thing, and that's fine.
Wish I could have heard what he said.
I was talking about Oath Keepers and the guy that was on Thursday, and Broken and him were kind of getting into it. That Broken was pointing out that the Oath Keepers were part of the group where the Bundys were holding guns against Americans for the ranch, at the ranch in Nevada, if you guys remember that. And I just, the point I brought up in regards to the Oath Keepers, and I've talked to a few of these guys, is they're just as, and I brought it up with a reference to Chris Hedges that said he likes, the government loves to see this, us doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They would rather us do this to each other.
Absolutely.
Not what you're thinking, not what you get your head out of the gutter, but they would rather see us battling each other rather than going after the real culprits, which are the two-party oligarchy and stuff like that. And we came to that agreement, and he feels that. You know, so that's something to grow off of. And I thought that was kind of a good moment. And he comes on here every once in a while. I don't know I forgot his name. But so we do have
Rusty Shack.
Yeah, exactly, Rusty Shack. So we do have people that come on that aren't really. They may be far right or far left. It's kind of rare, or for far right. But when they do come on, we give them their time, and we talk. But like I'm saying, I think once everybody connects the dots and just understands that it's us against them. I'm at that point now where I know who the enemy is, you know, and we probably shouldn't say that. And the FBI I just probably put up a flag like this. You know, the FBI is watching us right now.
I'm ready for the jackboots to kick my door in any day.
Exactly.
Basically, if you don't have a trust fund, you're on the same side as us, whether you like it or not.
It's true.
Yeah.
You can only fool yourself so much.
I'm sure Amy feels the same way, and I know that Kevin does too.
Mm-hmm.
Just saw the Congressional Budget Office estimate for somebody who's 65 or 64 and healthy for a 64-year-old. The new Republican plan, the annual insurance premium will be $20,500.
Whoa.
What did you just say, Snork?
This is from the CBO, Congressional Budget Office. 64-year-olds annual insurance under ACA would be $20,500.
Shit care.
This is not passing.
That's not
passing.
I believe they would.
I don't care how. I said that. I don't care how corrupt these people are in our Congress. This is not passing. I really have faith that there's that many people with that many constituents
I believe they withdrew
that they cannot do this.
Yeah. I believe they withdrew it within 1 hour of the CBO listing what it was going to cost to.
For me to have health care that's worth anything at all, I would have to pay somewhere around $200 to $300 a month just to have the plan, just to say I've got this plan, right? I've researched this recently. Then, if I ever have to actually use it or be hospitalized, etc., I would have to pay a deductible that would be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000.
Yes.
Why the hell would I prescribe to something like that? Not only that, then you have to pay co-pays on top of it. Then
you wouldn't.
Prescriptions on top of it. Then, I mean, it's like you're paying 4 or 5 times for anything that you do. So I'm in a better position, like just for clinic visits and things like that, either going to a Planned Parenthood for like an annual thing, or finding who I do actually have is a very sympathetic doctor who I've seen for over 20 years, and he knows I don't have health insurance, so he gives me a lot of breaks. You know, he'll always give me sample prescriptions if he's got.
Where do you live?
I live in Sandy Springs, but you know, I know some people that are decent. But it's hard because, I mean, that only covers, you know, just basic everyday health. Now, if I break a leg or, you know, get hit by a car or something really disastrous, need my appendix out, you know, then I'm looking at a giant, massive bill, and you don't know if they'll treat you before they bill you, because a lot of times these days, they're starting to get to the point where they know that so many people will not pay their bills that they will not do anything for you until you pay them first up front.
Oh, they just instituted that at a hospital here. Unless you're bleeding out on the spot,
right?
You have to pay a fee in order to be seen at the ER.
Yeah. Yeah, they won't even do anything for you and bill you later because so many people now are reneging on the bills. People can't afford them, so they just don't pay them. And, you know, unless it's a giant bill, they're not going to come after you. I've got a $300 bill from an ENT. They completely botched the entire visit, so I wasn't going to pay them. And that's back when I still had insurance. They still botched the visit, and they still tried to charge me $300. They've been chasing me around for over a year with that. They're not going to get it from me. And they'll sell it. What happens if you have a medical bill that you don't pay, they will chase you around with it for a while. Then they'll sell it to another collection agency. And the more times they sell it to another agency, the amount that it's worth goes down. So that's why by the time it's changed hands about 3 or 4 times, they'll start saying, well, if you just pay us half of it, we'll call it off, because it's not worth very much at that point. So it's a total racket. They're not going to take you to court. They're not going to take you to court over it. So if it's a smaller fee like that, just don't worry about it. That's where I've gotten to. Once I get married in 6-7 months, I'll have health care again for a while, unless my husband loses his job. So that's the way it goes. It's a lifetime so far for me of being in and out of healthcare, and it sucks either way. It really does. It sucks either way, because when I had insurance, that's when I went to the pharmacy and had the $500 eye drops, which I refused to purchase, or the $300 antibiotic, which I refused to purchase. And I called my doctor back and I said, get me something that doesn't cost damn $300. And you ask them, well, why does it cost so much? Well, it's the pharmaceutical company. They make a deal with us, and their prices change all the time. So you could come back in a month and it might be $20, but at that point, it's $300.
Anytime they give you a bad number,
evil and disgusting and wrong. I could get out of the eye drops, right? I could live without that. But what if it was something that I couldn't live without? And they're just holding that ransom above you. You want your life, you want your health. I'll call you up for $500.
Yeah, I met a woman that was she was a nurse in Florida, and her aunt, who she was very, very close with, had cancer, and this medicine that was going to keep her alive was not covered. And so what she did was she emptied her retirement funds, spent all her money buying this medicine in order to keep her aunt alive, and on top of taking care of her. So she wasn't working. She had to sell her home. She became homeless, and then when she ran out of money, her aunt passed away, and she had nothing except for her old car from back in the 80s. She ended up here in West Virginia because her brother, who had schizophrenia, had an apartment, but she couldn't stay with him because something, I don't know if it was because of him or because of the living situation, but she ended up homeless, and she ended up in a mental institution because she would rather die than live in a homeless shelter, because I've been in that one, and it was horrific conditions. Yeah. The people that worked there would steal from them. It was horrible. And she said, she was just so very calm about it. She's like, yes, if I have to go back there, I will kill myself. And yeah, I think she's back up on her feet now, but oh man, and now she's in West Virginia and she couldn't find a job, It was and there's how many people are like that out there?
It's almost like the system just breaks them. It just breaks them mentally and emotionally, psychologically. They just completely melt down. And who wouldn't? Why in the world should we live in a place that you ever have to be in a situation where you've got to sell everything you have just to get medicine?
Yeah, and it used to be one of those things that maybe you could skip, insurance for, maybe a couple years when you're young or something. Yeah. So good luck not getting sick, with all the stuff they're putting in our water and our air. Good luck dodging an illness. Good luck with that. It's not going to happen. Everybody's sick.
Yeah. And the thing that, that's the thing too, is that we're more and more sick because of our toxic environment, increasingly toxic food supply, water, etc. Right. So it's not even like you have an advantage of a healthy environment. You don't even have that. No, I can seriously get on a soapbox about healthcare. I just think it's one of the main things that just, especially short term, it has to happen, because you know, without it, everyone is demoralized. They're degraded. They're basically sent the not so subtle message that their life really is not of any value to their country. That's simple as that. You know, it says you don't really matter to us because we don't really care if you die or not. We don't care if you're sick or not. You're expendable. That's the message.
Ariel?
Yes.
I totally agree with you. And here's a third woman's voice on the same issue. But I completely agree with that. Congrats on your engagement, and I hope you get it. I hope it's very happy, and that you also get insurance for your wedding, because who knows what's going to happen here.
That's a benefit.
But something. I mean, it is about healthcare, but about just debt collection in general. I had a very interesting story about that was reported very like several years ago in the New York Times. I was a college student at the University of Connecticut, and I went and I taught high school English in France. And while I was at the DMV, I asked them, do I owe any money on my car? Do I owe any money on my car? No, I traded in the place. I left. 12 years later, I got a bill in the mail with the extra taxes on it, even though I had filed taxes 1 million times in between then, that they wanted this and the interest from me. and this was acceptable. And I still haven't paid it. Like, I haven't paid it because I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
And if I have to fucking go to Connecticut and fight my $130 car bill, I'm gonna go do that. And there's gonna be no proof I actually asked this woman that, but I did because I remember doing that. Because that's the kind of person I am. Irritating and covering all angles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
So
it's absolutely outrageous. And
Hey,
on principle, I think that sometimes we have to just not pay these bills because they're not right. They're not implemented correctly. They're not done correctly. And sometimes we have to not pay them.
Yeah.
And that's not our free speech. Like political speech, even though it sort of is political speech. It's not like buying a politician.
Right.
But it's us seriously disagreeing with what's being done. And like eventually it was like all my friends were like, fucking pay it. It's $130. Just pay it.
Yeah.
And I said no, I'm not gonna pay it. I got another bill this year after I filed my taxes from another debt collector.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
there was a story in the New York Times about that. I do not think that, states should be able to wait 10 years to send you a bill from something after you moved from there after you were in college, when they had reasonable means of finding you. I mean, I don't understand why that exists.
It's bizarre. Poor management.
No, but those are the kinds of things. I mean, it invades all facets of our life in all levels.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another one that people might not have known about it, but
well, that's me.
Anyway, if you ever lived in Connecticut,
it gets on the same level of. I mean, again, I got to go back to all Utah Phillips. He had a thing about the fact that, who owns all of the minerals under the land? We do. It's public property. It belongs to the people. But we get these privatized companies to go get it out of there and sell us back our stuff. It's crazy what is going on, right? They're selling us our own property. It's the same. They're selling us our own water. Nestle goes around and sneaks around into these communities, and they sneak around in their backyard and start draining the creek or whatever it is, and then they package it and market it and make us think it's from some fancy place when it's in somebody else's damn backyard. I mean, that's what's going on. The fact that we're even consuming water in plastic bottles made of more petroleum that most people don't recycle, and it's more plastic for the landfill. what in the world? I mean, get a damn water bottle and fill it up. Just look at James. He's hauling that bad boy around. I have several. I have reusable bottles. I fill them up. I take them everywhere. I don't buy plastic bottles. Not only that, but the plastic's making you sick. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I brought it up before with Tim Black. If you touch that receipt tape, that thermal paper that you get from any grocery store these days, they don't use real paper anymore with, real type. They use that thermal paper. It's slick. You'll know that slick paper. That stuff is coated in BPA. It's got that chemical in it. There was a documentary, Plastic Paradise, and they've done other studies as well, where you can touch that stuff, you can crinkle, get it on your hands, test your blood before and after, and your blood will spike with that chemical. It goes through your skin. Every time you touch that kind of receipt paper, you go into the grocery store, the gas station, everywhere, they're handing you that receipt, and everyone takes it. They don't think a thing of it, but you're getting a dose of BPA every time you touch that damn stuff, unless you're washing your hands immediately, which most people don't do. And that stuff is an endocrine disruptor. It gives you higher rate of cancer, fatigue, all kinds of freaking problems. It makes you sick, in a nutshell. It makes you sick. And so people don't know. They don't know. And so they have no clue. Like, they think I'm nuts when I go in a place and I won't touch it. They
don't touch it, James.
They try to give me that paper, and I say, I don't want it. Throw it away. And then if I, happen to get in a conversation with the cashier, I say, you ought to really be wearing a pair of just latex gloves or something while you work, because this stuff is getting in your bloodstream all day long. And then they're just shocked. They're like, what? This isn't common knowledge. This isn't common knowledge. They don't know it. People don't know it. They think you're nuts when you tell them about it, but it's the truth.
Hey, real quick, I'm sorry, but Kevin, I've been trying to tell, it seems like he's been trying to chime in every once in a while. His signal was really bad. So, and I think I heard him say a few things, and then he kind of went away. But anyway, good stuff. Ariel, yeah. Jork was going to say something. Thank you.
Yeah.
In regards to, we were back about 5 minutes ago.
I forgot.
Oh, okay. But did somebody just come on? No. Okay, we're good.
Kevin left.
Stevie, were you ready to respond? I noticed you muted yourself, so you might have been ready to say something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I sound like a lunatic because, whenever I see my mom, or my family, I'm just like, the air and the pollution, I sound like Alex Jones. And I'm like, they're poisoning us. And, it's just, I sound like a mental case. And she's like, can we just not talk about the pollution for a little bit? I'm just like, you don't want to know about what's killing you? Okay. All right. I'll shut up.
Should we be wearing hazmat suits, Zork? I mean, to be protective.
What kind of people don't want the receipt, though? It's always the rich.
Right.
I don't know. Zork, can I ask scientific questions? Where do you draw the difference between, like, I don't know, something scientific?
I don't get the question.
The question is, okay, people are really germaphobes in New York. So there's, like, germaphobes, and there's, like, maybe you should really keep away from some substance. Like, if you're on the subway, I mean, it's gross.
Oh, yeah.
But there's, like, germs and people who stay away from and use purifying gel all the time, but then maybe you're going to get sicker about things later on.
Yeah.
There's stuff you should probably totally stay away from, and stuff that's probably just, like, insane. And I'm just like, I'm not a germaphobe at all. I'm not rich, even though I live around a whole bunch of rich people. But people, like, I don't even care about germs because I'm not sick. Like,
well, New York is like one of those failed experiments.
We're
I guess it's sort of still creaking by, but I mean, you know, it's not really natural to stack millions and millions of people that deep. It's just, it's crazy there. It's crazy. Absolutely.
So Zork, I see. Go ahead.
Oh, well, somebody else actually on the live chat, I don't remember who it was, asked Snork how he got his online name of Snork.
I've wondered that.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
That's a good question.
Maybe we can get him to take it up.
It means snore in Norwegian.
Actually, it did come from something.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, so you don't have
It
to
came
say.
from something.
Huh? A project I worked on.
Something important to him, obviously.
I like the white. I mean, the Y2K, of course, we know about that. But yeah.
There's these people I see, and I hate this, you know, whatever, I'm going to say it. Mostly Asian. They wear masks on their faces.
Yes.
And they wear gloves.
Yes.
And they wear visors.
Yep.
And
When they have the
cover their
slightest
windows.
cold.
Now, in Asia,
yes,
it's proper that if you have a cold, you wear the mask so you don't infect everybody else. I view that as being very polite, and I would like to see that everywhere.
They do that in New York offices.
Oh, is that the reason?
Yes, that's being polite.
Because they are themselves sick.
Right.
Yeah.
They're getting sick.
The one with the mask is the sick one. If they have to go out in public, you know, some people look down on being overly cautious. That is just being polite. And when you live in a highly densely populated area, you are basically a bacteria.
Spread
Right.
like
And
wildfire.
we should be adopting some of these. You know, the Japanese are so good at some things, so weird on others. But at one city in Japan, makes their citizens, you don't have a choice. And in Japan, it's culturally unacceptable to not conform to what's required. So they have 35 different things they're supposed to separate out of their garbage if they recycle. That you know, we have 3 or 4 categories, maybe 5 in some decent cities. Japan has 35 categories. So each day of the week, there's 2 different categories, of different colored or coated bags that you put out. You know, the kindergartners, when my niece was going to kindergarten, she had to wear a helmet when she was walking to school, and they had to keep a helmet at their desk in case there was an earthquake. They were so prepared for something like that it's so strange to me that they let Fukushima happen.
Yeah, and they are really
I agree.
Thoughtful. Like if they have a cold, they will wear face masks and go to work.
I did not know that. I feel stupid now.
So they will not.
Well, you know, what you do when you feel stupid is you say, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." You don't double down on your stupidity. That's the only thing that I ask of people.
Why not? That's what our government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like New York. Maybe our subway riders should have the mask on. The hands are the most of the time where things are traded, and you got to put your hands on the balusters and stuff like that. So, gloves wouldn't be such a bad idea. I cannot see the United States being that polite.
It's funny. Whenever I go to the doctor or anything like that, I'll take one of those little paper masks and I'll put it on just because if there's people sneezing or coughing around me, I don't want to get it right in my face, and
it's not on.
Then people stay away from you too, which is good. They think you must have something horrible.
Yeah, and you hate having to hold the escalator's baluster when you see the person in front of you with the Cheeto finger. You know, it's so out of the 5 fingers, one of them's clean. You got to wonder why the one's clean.
That's what a germaphobe would think. I would hold the door. If it wasn't going to get my arm chopped off, I would hold the door.
If I'm out in a big public place, I'll just avoid touching my face, touching your eyes until you can, go somewhere and get a get your hands washed. I'm not big on those like gels and germ fighting stuff. I think those things are disgusting. And triclosan is just terrible for you. And that's what's in most of those.
But so I just ignore all of it. So I'm asking you, why the paper from the grocery store?
What?
Well, she was
Yeah,
saying
you lost me
receipts
too.
from. No, she was saying receipts from grocery stores had chemicals in them.
They do.
That you wouldn't want to touch them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they still do or not. In the past, they've had some very bad chemicals.
What about vegetables that are on display? Yeah.
Oh, there's a really bad thing going around in the United States. I hope the fad doesn't catch on in Europe too.
You should let us know these things.
Well, I noticed
there's a fad where people are going up to the apple aisle and taking bites out of as many apples as they can, putting them back with the bites down.
Nice one.
And I caught somebody doing that, and I didn't realize it was a fad at the time. This is a very small store. So basically I looked up, 15 feet away, there's the manager. And I said, hey, but it is, crazy. Yeah. People eat grapes. Anything that you get at a store here, you should wipe it. Now, something that's different between Europe and the United States is eggs. In the United States, you'll always see the eggs in refrigerators. In Norway, are they not?
Because they clean them and take that coating off the shell.
That is correct. In Europe, they're live eggs with and again, it's been 10 years since I've been there, so they might have changed their practices since I've been there. But they have live eggs with active immune systems. In the United States, they have killed immune systems. So in 45 minutes to 2 hours, eggs are poisonous here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but
what? It's insane. Okay, so when I go shopping in the grocery store,
buy the eggs last.
So if I ever saw somebody biting an apple, I'd knock them out. But here's the other thing. here's the other.
Just shove the apple down their throat.
There you go. Yeah, here, you want this apple? Boom. Okay, but the thing that I do is I don't like using plastic bags. So I just throw all my vegetables and stuff inside of my basket, and I just go out. And then I come up to the counter and I throw it on the counter, and then I leave. But when I get home, I wash it.
Yeah, you don't want them in the basket.
The basket's bad, right?
Yeah. You mean the thing where the babies sit with the diaper?
No, not that part. I don't. Yeah. Oh God, no, God. Okay, no, not there. Not there. I see people like putting bananas in plastic bags. I mean, I'm like, that's a little overkill, right?
Oh yeah, I hate that.
Bananas are different. Bananas have a chemical they emit called ethylene. It's a precursor to plastic. So when you put bananas in plastic, it kind of is a feedback loop. In fact, they ship bananas in plastic when they come from Central America. And the first things that they will do is they are sent unripened, and they will rip them out of the plastic. So if you leave the banana in plastic for 3 or 4 hours while you're shopping, it should be okay. But I don't know about California because of your heat. I worry about what that would do while you're going from your store to your car in 90-degree weather.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm not really big on. I just throw it all in the basket. I don't really care.
Could you better specify that ethylene thing?
Oh, okay. Almost all the flavors in the different fruits are aromatic hydrocarbons. They're quite complex molecules, and some of them are cancerous. And some of them are excellent at removing things from oil. And even the material D-limonene that's in lemons, oranges, and whatever makes an excellent substitute for gasoline. And also can be used in a substitute for turpentine. So ethylene is just one of the chemicals that bananas give off. I can't remember what the banana flavoring is called, but if you
banana flavor.
It's really artificial.
Yeah, when you rip off one banana from the bunch,
it will ripe slower. I mean,
yeah. Well, when you rip it off, it opens up and lets the ethylene out, and it starts going to its sugar phase.
Mm-hmm.
So
I hate when people be ripping off my bananas.
Yeah, you rip off a banana, it's got one day to go.
I feel bad about all those single bananas that never get picked up.
I buy those. I do. I buy those. I try to be responsible.
Yep.
You know, most grocery stores,
25%
of their income is from the sale of bananas.
No.
So price of banana fluctuating messes up grocery stores like you can't imagine.
That's true.
And people do. They'll rip one off and buy 5 instead of 6. Again, we have a society that's not too polite. I mean, we bomb people.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can only go down from there. For real.
I think we need like a full 180, like I've been saying, like just total change of our culture has just gotten. I mean, we turn into pigs. I would be a good example of that. But
pigs are more polite.
Yeah, they are actually.
Yeah, see, I think we've become worse than any animal on the freaking planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the most destructive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've really got to. God, we've got.
Especially after the news in Belgium today.
Wow.
Well, somebody's been going into the library.
What?
And crapping in the books.
Oh my god.
I thought you might be about to say something like that, and I was like, oh,
Wait. It depends on the book.
Yeah.
Literally shit.
They didn't say which book, but they got the person.
Yeah, Memoirs of Hillary Clinton.
Oh,
That's a good book.
That would be the best book to do it too.
What happened? Somebody pooped in a book? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Yeah, you heard that right.
I mean, come on, haven't they heard about markers?
You can't make stuff up like this.
People do some fucked up things.
It must be pretty boring in Belgium. I don't know.
In a good way.
Yeah, that's as bad as the Illinois Enema Bandit.
Enema Bandit.
Dare I ask?
Back in the 60s, he would, instead of kidnapping people, he would put them down and give them enemas.
Well, he restrained them and stuck a tube up their ass?
Wow, man.
Oh.
Why? How?
What?
They would have caught this guy quicker.
What the fuck? That's a trigger, man.
You need some trigger.
It's an enema trigger.
Where are the signs?
I
think I found a copy of the book.
Oh
no! Did they crap in the Hillary Clinton book?
Yeah,
that's the book we need to crap in.
I prefer to call her Madam Sandwich.
Madam Sandwich.
Yes, because South Park called Hillary Clinton the turd sandwich.
Oh no.
Perfect.
Such a nasty sandwich.
It's so funny because, I mean, talking about humans and talking about how we're just kind of like the scourge species on the earth. I mean, we really are the ones that create all the destruction and all the mayhem. I mean, if we weren't here, the earth would just be fine. It'd be just going along without us. It doesn't need us at all. I was talking about this with Greg today, how, you know, you have a human baby in these modern times. It's probably a little different in the older, old times. But now you have a kid you go through 9 months of puking and feeling bad and up and down and food cravings and mood swings. And then you get this thing and it's not ready to go. It's not ready to walk. It's not ready to talk. It's not ready to do shit. It doesn't know how to do anything until
it knows how to shit. That's for damn sure.
It does shit. It does puke.
It knows
does
how to
scream.
shit, piss, and cry.
It does scream. All it knows to do is to scream because something's, hungry, wet. And so even then, after 18 years of taking care of this thing, you still don't know if it's going to turn out to love you or if it's going to be a drug dealer or it's going to shoot you while you're asleep. You don't really know how the kid's going to turn out. You don't know. There's no guarantees.
Right.
But here's the thing. Like we watch birds a lot. We both love birds. And a bird has a brain like a peanut, like a tiny little thing. That bird will, and we watch them. I've got a nesting box, and they fledge all over the place. Has the egg. They sit on the egg for about 2 weeks. Bird doesn't get sick or disgusted. It just does it. The eggs hatch. They feed those kids for maybe 2 weeks, kick them out, and the birds are ready. They got their wings, and they're ready to go, and they fly, and they can start foraging, and nobody has to teach them, really. They just know. They know how to build a nest. They know how to find food. They know how to find water. People,
some birds know
people,
masonry skills.
It's like I'm blown away with how pitiful we are sometimes. It's just like, my goodness, we're so slow. A horse is ready to run in a few hours of being born. We are so needy. It's like, and it never
Ariel?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm a little disappointed that you like such a dumb animal sometimes as a bird. I'm a little,
they're not dumb.
If I was going to be comedically judgy of you. But one thing on mainstream media, actually, in a late night thing was Jimmy Kimmel. And he really tried. Because he had a sick child, was born sick. And he acknowledged on mainstream media in a late night situation that it is terrible that, that other families would not be able to save this child. And of course, that went on one of his shows and nowhere else. But I had to give him a little bit of credit for that. And I did have one more thing, but I forgot what it was.
A black-capped chickadee can remember where they have stored seeds for a month after they've stashed them away, and they can remember hundreds and hundreds of hiding places. No, birds are not stupid by any means. Anybody that's ever had pet birds definitely knows that's true, which I have had pet birds since I was 11 years old. They're incredible. I'm just saying, for a brain that tiny, if our brain worked on that level, and we had a bird brain that size, I mean,
we do have a good example of that.
We wouldn't be fighting anymore, probably.
We have a really good example of that.
All right. Well, sorry, I misinterpreted your bird intelligence thing. But the third thing I was going to say was I want to actually thank drug dealers for one thing. There is a lion and a tiger and a bear living in a sanctuary in the south of this country because only drug dealers have enough money and enough like the type of I don't give a shit about the law to put this shit in their basement. And this lion, this tiger, and this bear were rescued after a drug raid and are actually now in a sanctuary in the south of this country, living together as if they were brothers, because they were kind of. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, that's pretty. That would never happen.
We do have an example of a human with a brain the size of a pea that tweets.
Yeah, Trump's a good example of that.
Okay, that's true.
That was epic.
Yes.
I don't know what she said about the lion, or what was it? What'd you say? A tiger and a bear?
A tiger and a bear. Yes, they live in the same.
I'm kind of half thinking the drug dealer was just kind of fucked up and then got the tiger and the bear just so he could say lions and tigers and bears don't lie.
Yeah.
You know, just so he could.
No, this is really real. Like, these
they got them out.
Oh no, I don't doubt.
Lived together because they were born under the same tortured circumstance in a basement.
Yeah,
this is actually real.
The lion, tiger, and bear are actually almost inseparable. They don't fight each other. They they can't separate them. It causes them great anxiety. It's been in the news, and you know, it's the three of them are basically brothers. They don't treat themselves as aggressors.
See, I'm always fascinated by like stories like that, like where depending on like how like a creature is raised, like how like it'll turn out. I mean, because if those animals wouldn't have been raised together, like they would have killed each other, you know. But I mean, since they were, you know, they're, you know, like family. So like, you know, and it's fascinating because like you see humans, and depending on how you treat a human being, like you can get somebody like Donald Trump, or you get somebody like, you know, I don't know, Gandhi or whatever, you know, like it's so crazy.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, and this is actually true, is that there's been more and more psychological studies done to really show that people always think if their kid turns out poorly, it's all their fault. But that's actually not as true as people think. I mean, both of my parents, for example, they came from alcoholic, abusive, very, very rough backgrounds. Wouldn't even want to get into all the things they went through. And neither one of them became abusive or any of that kind of thing, even though it's more likely people would think that you would if you went through that. It very much depends on the kind of person that you are. In addition to the way you are grown, you know, raised, it's, you know, that's why a lot of the time you get a violent criminal if you have somebody that's in a terrible home and then at the same time they've already got a predilection for mental illness. But more and more it is proven that it doesn't have as much to do with the parental stuff as parents believe. They want to believe that it's all their fault if their kid turns out poorly, but it really isn't. It truly isn't. It also comes down to the person. It's the nature versus nurture. And a lot of it is the person's nature. You know, somebody that's kind and gentle, no matter how much they might get abused or mistreated, if they're genuinely a kind, gentle person, they're going to try to maintain their compassion. A lot of times you'll see that. And sometimes they'll switch. Sometimes they'll go, oh, you know, and they get bitter and angry. So it's a little hard to always determine it just from parental influence.
Yeah, I mean, you're creating basically a new element. You're taking two different, you know, people, and yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but like, you know, you're creating a new element, and then you're taking that element and you're putting it into a new environment. So, you know, there's, we're gonna be a little weird. We're gonna be a little different, but you know.
I love all those videos.
And it doesn't mean go ahead and abuse your kid; they'll be fine. That's not what that means. But the fact is that it's fine to be an imperfect parent. All parents are imperfect in some area, and people shouldn't beat themselves up nearly as much as they do if their kid, you know, makes a mistake or messes up. You know, it's.
Yeah, I mean, my grandma tried, but I mean, look at how I turned out. I mean, total rebel. I mean, I can't keep my mouth shut.
You think you're pretty awesome.
Mouth like a sailor. I can't. She tried to raise me like a lady, and it didn't work.
Mama tried.
My parents used to have a dog, and my wife and I went to visit in our apartment. We couldn't have a cat, so my wife wanted a hamster. So we got a hamster, and we took it with us over Christmas vacation home. I guess this was over 30 years ago. But the dog, upon seeing the hamster, went back to the kitchen door and started making its noises to go outside. When I went to go let it outside, it didn't go outside. It ran across the garage and pointed at the rat traps or mice traps. It was out in the country. Then it ran back to the house and asked to go back in the house. And then I followed it in the house, and it ran right back to the hamster and pointed at the hamster. And it kept doing this until it let me know that I wasn't the smart one. It wanted to hit those mouse traps in there for that mouse.
The dog was trying to tell you to kill the gerbil.
Like, I've always been shocked at how well a 2-year-old can outsmart me. You know, like, I feel like, you know, I'm an adult. Like, I should be able to, like, outsmart a 2-year-old, no problem. But, like, you know, you put up the baby gates, and I swear to God, like, one day I spent a whole day making this baby gate for the kitchen, and within 2 seconds, my son just goes over, flips it, goes right over it. You can't, I mean, like, I couldn't contain him. I'm like, you're 2, you're 3. Like, how are you outsmarting me? I should be better than this, you know?
My friend Utah Phillips used to say, he's like, I love kids, especially little kids, because little kids are assholes, but they're their own asshole. You know, it's when you grow up, you become somebody else's asshole, and you got lawyers and B-52 pilots. We're all in trouble then, you know? It's like, little kids will just tell you the truth, and that's for sure. And I think that's honestly if you've got a kid, I would think that would be one of the biggest challenges is to have them mature and grow up and not squash that awesome, wild, creative, unique spirit that's there, because that's most of the time what most parents spend most of the time trying to just, no, don't be you. We want you to be a doctor or a business executive. We don't want you to be you. And that's, I hate that. That's
it's a pretty.
Whenever I was performing music live, it was always the little kids that would want to come see me play. They're always the ones that would be first up, you know, right up to me looking like, what is she doing? It's the adults that would be like, no, come along. You know, it's the kids that are really aware a lot of the time. They're the ones that are awake.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because, like, you know, it's the one time, like, on one hand, like, I want my kids to be able to, like, I don't want to dampen that, you know, like, they have, like, so much fire in them. Yep. But at the same time, it's like, they kind of have to function in society. So, you know, like, how do I do this?
Society's pretty shitty.
Like, the real society, not the one projected to you, the real one.
No.
Social skills. It's social skills.
City. Trust me, there's not much society there.
Yeah, it's basically don't bite your friends, and, you know,
share.
I'm pretty lenient on the rest of the stuff.
Don't be mean. Share.
Yeah. Well, I think the important things to teach are
people should stop teaching that. I mean, they need to stop teaching that, because that's where we are. No, it's not that they should stop. I mean, we should change, but that's not going to help them unless we fix it.
I always
That's
really like what Kelly has to say about her kids, and the way she talks to them is pretty awesome about how she'll get them to, if somebody does something they don't like, she'll try to say, well, we don't know where they're coming from, and they might be having a bad day, and, you know, to kind of get them to realize that most of the time when someone does something that you don't like, it's really coming from their own pain or their own frustration. It's not so much that they have a personal problem with you per se. And that's important, you know. That takes you out of yourself. It teaches empathy. It teaches compassion. It teaches
tolerance.
Yeah, that's important.
Accompanied with that needs to be the fact that other people aren't going to think that.
Right.
That they're gonna do the nice and right thing.
Right.
And that they're not going to be responded to with what they've been taught. And that's the important lesson.
Yeah.
And how we deal with that is, I think, the thing we're all talking about all the time.
Yeah. I thought that it's important for a kid to be surrounded by not the village people. Well, it could be the village people, but good village people.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
What I'm saying. So I moved a lot. My dad was a musician, and then I was in the Navy. So I think I went to like 8 different elementary schools, 3 different high schools. So it was, you know, structure and making new friends were both tough, but trying to follow structure would never happen. the thing is I learned from all these other villages and how things went, how people acted, how people, different cultures in a sense. Yeah. But at the same time, probably made me more aware of how to deal with people. That's why I'm probably an okay salesman and a good marketer. But I do believe that the village, the family is good. Your immediate surroundings are important, and then the village is also important.
Yeah.
But sometimes you might have a bad egg. You know, you can't. Sometimes there's always that one kid that something just, they see something that distracts them and they're gone.
Here's the thing, James. Here's the thing that's so key about what you're saying, is that you're talking about the village. And when I think of a village, I think of a small community. And that's really what people do best in, because you know everybody. And then, yes, if you have, it's closer to nature. I think of a village type, scenario as being much closer to nature. And if you do have somebody that's out of hand or violent or aggressive, it's so much easier for everybody to come together and deal with it. Because we've got this world now where things are so disconnected. Even in the house with one family, everybody's in a different room watching a different screen. They don't even come together to watch the screen anymore. Okay? So it's so vital what you're talking about is the small community. Because if you do have that one bad seed, like you said, the whole village deals with it. Instead of this person just being off on their own, stockpiling weapons, planning to go blow up a school or a theater or whatever the stupid thing they're doing. That stuff happens in isolation, not in the village.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of miss about church. Like, I don't do that anymore, but like when I was a kid, like that was, I would go with my neighbor and she would take me to church with her every Sunday. And then after church, we'd go to her family's house and, have a, dinner. And it was like, it was just community, just being around people and getting to socialize. It was really, I kind of miss that aspect, not going to church anymore.
I understand that. Yeah.
This is church. This is our church.
That's right.
We have Father Zork and Sister Mary Ellen Ariel.
Sister Bunny.
And I'm just an abused altar boy.
Is the church called the Church of the Triggered?
I have an old line that said, when Satan fell to earth, he landed right in the choir loft. I liked that because when I was in choirs and I did music in the church when I was a young teenager, I thought that's really true because everyone there was real snotty. I said, yeah, they're all kind of mean here.
But I disagreed. I was going to say I disagreed with Ariel to an extent on the small community aspect of it because I grew up in sort of a suburb of the city of New York. I live in the city of New York, and my parents ended up moving to a more upstate city in New York, and they call people from the city of New York cityans. And it's just that's what they call them.
Where are you at?
If I want to say it in a New York accent, that's what they call them. That's what I could say.
Well, I live on Long Island.
So
I live on Long Island, so.
And they call them cityans.
Mm-hmm.
So you go up and say, and it's just like, wait a minute. Like I'm a person who respects where my parents live now and where you live and what you do. And you're calling me a cityant. Like that's, we have a problem. We have a problem. So there's something about small communities, but there's also something very resentful about small communities. And it cannot be overlooked. I don't know. I'm probably a Noam Chomsky fan or something so pie in the sky ridiculous. You have to look at the big picture. And nobody wants to look at it. No one wants to look at what the big picture is about anything. I once got accused I actually once got accused at work of they told me I didn't see the trees through the forest. And
well, you don't live in the city then.
No, I do. I live in Manhattan. I got accused of not seeing the trees. And I'm like,
it must have been some kind of old saying or something, because, like, you know, some of those old sayings you probably wouldn't understand.
Yeah, but it's the forest or the trees. Like, do you want to see where we're going? And it's just like nobody wants to see where we're going anymore, and they don't have any patience for it, or it doesn't fit how they want life to be. And it's so quick. Now with technology, okay, this is weird, but with technology and everything, you can connect so quickly with people you agree with or disagree with, or whichever it is, to say, hey, that's all right.
It's like too much of any one thing is going to be bad for you. Like if you don't reach outside of your community, or if you don't even look at your own community, but just, focus on just the bigger picture, like everything is about balance. And when you knock that balance out of whack, that's when you see problems. Like anything done in any one extreme. And I mean, you see that here with communities. They don't, like a lot of places here don't know about like what's out in the big world. They don't understand like how they fit into the giant puzzle, and that doesn't help anybody.
I watched a great documentary today on YouTube. It's called Children Full of Life, and it's from Japan. It's about a teacher teaching 4th grade, but this 4th grade class is a bit different because he teaches them compassion. He teaches them about life. He spends 1 year teaching them
it's also
compassion. What?
That's extremely funny too. I think that's great, and I think compassion is great, and I think any documentary about it is great. But one day, he worked 90 hours a week on a merger in downtown Wall Street, and Wall Street was dead. It was dead because nobody cared, because all the stuff.
It's a bit muffled.
Yeah, I can't hear what you're saying either.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I can hear you now.
Anyway, there was no one there because Wall Street is closed, but everyone there was Asian and young and Japanese. And I got off of the subway, and I just laughed to myself, like, oh my God.
Well, as far as I
Like,
know, it's not common practice in Japan. It's just this was.
Well,
just a
I know, but on Wall Street,
instance.
it's also not a common. Well, that's a common practice on the weekends. That Japanese students are standing on Wall Street taking pictures with each other, and it's not a large amount of people, and it's not something we should judge them on. But it is something that really hurts me, because I look at them and I look at how excited they are, and every once in a while,
endless greed.
Right, and no, but it's glorified. It's greed. It's glorified greed. It's not. That's what it is. I mean, it's criminal.
Yeah, but
it has been criminal.
There's a lot of bad things,
So
but I think what I mentioned here is one thing they should introduce into school to try to make the world a better place, and most of all try to teach our children the most important things of all, that compassion and being open and true to your feelings. It's also important.
And also another important thing, not tolerating bullshit from liars like the government.
Well, but yeah. They're not going to teach that.
But when I walk down a Wall Street that has no suits on it, and then all of a sudden it's weekends, and this is what I see, it's just like, and I'm not there because I'm on Wall Street. Like I'm not calling from Wall Street. I don't think I wouldn't be there.
Well, if you're in the bubble, you don't see it as evil. Just see it as, you know.
No, but they wouldn't
my...
call you even. I wouldn't see it, and I wouldn't call you in the first place.
Mm.
But it's just, I mean, it was just weird, and how happy they were. And I know they were tourists, and I know all of this, but what they were taking pictures of and their expressions, okay, triggered me. Hold up your signs. Do me a favor. That was my trigger. It was my internal trigger. That was it. That got me.
Wow. Something that I wanted to clarify on was that when I talk about small communities, I guess in my mind, and talking about village and things like that, is I'm not thinking about modern small towns, because there's a lot of problems in those two. That's really not where my mind goes. You have to remember to tell people that, you know, I think more of indigenous cultures. I think more of tribal society before Europeans came to this country, or different cultures around the world, you know, before they've been modernized. That's what I think of when I think of a natural, you know, village or community. And
everybody knowing their neighbor and getting along would be an improvement.
Right, yeah. What was that? There was a lady that called into Tim's show one night. She was really funny and she was cool. And she talked about how, you know, says, oh, in the Bible it says love your neighbor. And she said, I don't even know my neighbor. So I decided to go out and meet my neighbor. Yeah. This is a book that I absolutely love. Called Where White Men Fear to Tread by Russell Means. I'm lucky enough that he was kind of got to be a friend of mine. I met him when I was 18. He was in The Last of the Mohicans. He did a little bit older, but he was most of his life was part of the American Indian movement. And this book is really a story of his life and where he came from and what he was kind of fighting for most of the time. And he died of cancer a couple of years ago. It was sad, but I learned a lot about just indigenous culture and things like that from him, because, you know, he learned a lot about it from his relatives who, you know, some of them even lived through, you know, all of the garbage that happened in the Dakotas, because he was Lakota Sioux. And so, yeah, that's when I think about, you know, a community and a functioning, you know, healthy, vibrant society. I think of people that lived closer to nature and the earth, and everyone really had an integral and vital role in the community. So nobody was ever really left out on the sidelines. You know, of course, these are cultures where, you know, greed was synonymous with mental illness. Like if somebody was greedy or they were, you know, taking more than they needed, that was really considered there was something really wrong with them. That was like a sickness. So, you know, we're in a very different place now.
All right, listen, I gotta get.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Bye.
Take care, James.
Aloha.
Bye, James. Take care. Have a good one.
Welcome, everybody. Aloha. Bye bye.
Take care, sweetheart.
Bye, James.
Have a good night.
No, bye,
Bye-bye.
James. James.
Bye, Amy. Bye.
Bye.
Silence.
All the sound just.
Okay, I might as well just do it. Triggered!
Triggered! I think I'm going to take off too, guys, because it's pretty late here.
Oh.
Yeah, here too.
Any last thoughts from anyone?
Any last thoughts? I don't know.
Last parting thoughts?
Parting thoughts? I don't really have any parting thoughts. I just thought all of this was just fun. And plus, you know, it keeps it real.
Happy trails to you until we meet again.
Oh my God, you're all singing.
Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then.
Oh, I got a funny jingle though. Oh, let me close out
Vote
with
for Paula Jean in West Virginia. I'll come down for that.
I just might as well just close out
I'd
with
be happy to knock on doors for Paula Jean. I don't live in West Virginia, but I like her so much.
Aw.
What was your jingle, Eric? What'd you say you were going to
Oh, I pretty much, I pretty much make fun of the fake news Trump dossier.
Yep.
Because, honestly, to me, it sounds like a disgruntled fan fiction. Really, truly a disgruntled fan fiction.
Did you see CNN retract that?
Oh, yeah, I know, big time.
Yeah, I cracked up at that. It's like, really? Now you retract it? You've only had people call you on your bullshit for, what, 8 months? And now you do it?
Yeah,
do you know one of the people they fired was Thomas Frank? When did you see him on there? I actually just looked that up while the show was going on. At some point, they fired Thomas Frank. I'm assuming that's the same guy who wrote List Liberal. I mean, there are probably more than one fucking Thomas Frank in there. Sorry.
Well, here's one thing I think about the Trump dossier that people forget. Hillary Clinton pissed away $1.2 billion, and now I call her the gold shower girl.
Pissed away $1.2 billion and still fucking lost.
No refunds.
But, with the little jingle, I call her the gold shower girl.
Did anybody else, on the day after the election, have, the thought in their mind, I'm really glad Hillary lost, but I'm not so glad Trump won?
Yeah. Actually,
we all feel that way.
Actually, I walked in at one point during the whole election night, and my parents were watching it. We're all watching it, and I said, I have a bad feeling somebody's going to win this.
Ariel's laughing.
Is it because of what I said?
Yeah, I have a bad feeling someone's going to win this thing.
It was oddly relieved and terrified at the same time.
I know.
Yeah. Oh wait. Oh, what am I cheering for?
When they finally decided to take a stand, I don't know the other two people. I don't know a lot of the people that you guys mentioned, but it's Thomas Frank, and I haven't even read his Listen Liberal, but I live Listen Liberal. I mean, that's how I am. I mean, I think that's how I am. Period. I like Jimmy Dore. That's enough,
I read it twice, and it is a definite eye opener. It connected a lot of the dots around here. I mean, it exposed a lot of the stuff that I didn't even know, but that the Democrats had done that directly impacted, my life. I didn't even know about that stuff because you can't say anything bad about them. It's always talk trash about the Republicans, but the Democrats you can't touch.
No.
Yeah, you know what you guys should check out? There's what's her name? I forget her name, but it's McQueen Press. It's a channel on YouTube. But she does a lot of well-researched stuff, and normally it's on topics that nobody else is covering. She's only
They're trying to get rid of the women.
Huh?
It was a joke.
Well, I was just saying that you guys might want to check her out because she does bring up topics that aren't normally discussed.
But they should be.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. You guys might want to check that out. You know what I mean?
Who was it? I didn't catch it. Queen something?
McQueen Press.
McQueen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a black woman.
Anyway, I did see Thomas Frank's name, and I was just like, oh, well done, CNN. Well played. They got rid of the liberal. Maybe they were paying that they never put on TV.
Yeah, I remember him saying. Didn't he say in one? I think it might have been in an interview with Jimmy Dore that when he had that "What's the Matter with Kansas" or whatever that book, everybody had him on to talk about that book. Nobody wanted to talk about Listen Liberal though,
because he has the right idea. And I don't know. Actually, I never read Listen Liberal, but I agree with Jimmy Dore. And I'm not sure what Russia story he had going on with CNN, so I'm not sure. But that's where they put their foot down, and that's pretty. It's something to be noted. They put their foot down on somebody who probably most of the time says what's going on. So that's where I am. I have a lot of research to do, but I also have bills to pay. So what do?
You try to find decent people that can help with the research end a bit.
Anybody else keep hearing that weird staticky sound?
I do. I hear it.
Damn CIA.
It's the Russians. Just kidding.
Darn Russians.
The Russians.
They're always coming around late at night.
Actually, I actually heard. I know some guy from Russia who actually works for a hedge fund. He just does math, supposedly. But he told me that when he's a very astute bridge player, and he told me that when he was growing up in Russia, bridge was banned. And I was like, I thought when I read the Brothers Karamazov that they played whist. And so that must have been a weird thing. Anyway, I thought it was very strange. Something else. And again, you could go to a million different websites and find out things that are not true. For me. And it's just not reasonable, in my opinion.
It gets hard trying to sift through and actually get down to some facts. I don't know how many times I've tried to look up, and it doesn't help either that, search engines are, designed to give you the results that they want, as we found out with Google during the election, and now I know Hard Bastard did this thing where it was they're wanting to censor it. They're trying to censor Google. So it's just
but you cannot do that either. And you're at a crossroads. What happened? Oh shit.
I'm sitting here, it's kind of interesting talking about Russell. I don't know if anyone's talking. I can't hear anyone, so it's hard for me to tell. But yeah, just talking about
I can hear you now.
Russell and the Last of the Mohicans movie, and a couple people talking about how much they love that story. And I said, that's an interesting story, because it's, it really showed how the truth of it was that a lot of colonials that came over here lived and worked in pretty good harmony with a lot of the Indian nations. A lot of them really did leave Europe to escape, monarchies and all kinds of nasty. And they really wanted to live a more natural life, a more simple life. And a lot of them did find it, but it's always, you got the kings and the queens and the monarchy and the rich people that always are going to push and fight the wars, right? And a lot of colonials didn't want to join them. They didn't even want to fight a stupid war. They're like, why should we do that? We left and we don't want anything to do with it. It's a really interesting story. And it's funny. I remember when I talked to Russell, he would always, and in his book, he actually talks about that, about how, a lot of white people especially feel like they really need to call Indian people Native Americans now. And, you know, that was a big thing, especially in the 90s, you know, calling Indian people Native Americans. And he really hated that line. And he said, a lot of Indian people really don't like being called Native American because that just means you were born in America. He's like, if you're born here, you're a Native American. He said, you know, and a lot of people don't understand where the word Indian really comes from. It didn't mean that Columbus thought he was in India. It wasn't even called India back then. It was Hindustan, I believe. And so, you know, when he came over, because, you know, they spoke a lot of Latin and they used a lot of Latin in you know, where he was from. And so he called them Indio. And that was actually, I believe that was first described to some of the people in the islands in the West End, I can't remember where he first landed there. Brains don't worry, but it wasn't on the continent. Anyway, he called.
It was an island.
Yeah, he called people Indio, which was in God, because the people were so kind and you know, compassionate, considerate of him. And they gave him all these gifts. And so he went back home and said, you know, these people are great. They're wonderful. And they're going to make tremendous slaves. And so he went back and that's what he did. But to this day, that's where that came from. Indio became Indian. And so that's what, you know, and I remember Russell saying, he's like, we got enslaved as Indians. He's like, and I want us to win our freedom as Indians. He's like, that's what we're going to do. So a lot of times I'll say American Indians, but Native American is kind of a weird thing to say in a lot of respects. But yeah, that's actually where it originally came from. It actually he meant it to say like a people in God, a people close to God, Indio, you know, because they were so generous and you know, loving. So pretty awful the way it all turned out. You know, it's a real shame. And we were talking about that, how, you know, it was almost like the great national experiment. You know, it's like if Europeans and Indian nations could have worked together in harmony instead of, you know, what really went down. It's really
I heard from a
Ariel,
documentary
you know
that
what I think is amazing, actually, and I watched that whole thing unfold, and Jordan Sheridan did an amazing thing on North Dakota Access Pipeline. But I watched them, and over Thanksgiving and over all of the things, and then I got a free ticket to the Tribeca Film Festival. It was free. It was in Lower, you know, in Chelsea, and I went to the movie, and my friend was late, and we walked in, and like Josh Fox was already speaking, and he was staring at me, and I was just like, I'm so sorry I'm late. Like, I didn't know what to do. I just sat down, you know, next to the person who was actually late, and I watched the whole film. And I can't say the film was better than Gasland, because Gasland was much better. And I think, I mean, as a film. Right. But what I said to I don't know if it was Chase Iron Eyes. It might have been because he was there too. And I said, your movement reminded me what integrity was like. Yeah. That it existed today. And to me, that was the most important thing, because what they did was about integrity. It was about a history they believed in, a movement they believed in, a resource they believed in, and they wouldn't change it.
Right.
In the face of militarized police or anything, they wouldn't give it up. And that's, you know, and I think Bernie Sanders still holds that integrity. He's done it over 30, 40 years. The same kind of record, the same kind of thing. But what they were doing against what they were doing with the racism and the environmentalism and the militarization, I just thought was one of the worst things I've ever seen on any Thanksgiving in my entire life.
Yeah, I think though, it's honestly, I mean, I highly recommend this book, but I mean, there's also so many good ones, like, I mean, it's a classic, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, or just any number of real accounts. You'll find that things have really not changed. And I think that that's what's really the most disappointing, is that you would think and you would hope that after all this mess, I mean,
yes,
the things would be different, but it's not. And in the 70s, this fella, he was shot, I think, at least 3 times in all the different actions. He worked with Leonard Peltier and, you know, all those guys in the 70s. And it hasn't changed. That's what's really depressing about the whole situation, is that it hasn't changed. It has not, you know, people have not gotten better or more enlightened at the top. A big thing that he always fought in his life was the BIA, was the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the worst organization that was ever put together. Yeah, I mean, it was really literally to come in there and just keep people marginalized and keep them poor and keep them crushed. Genocide was really definitely the whole objective, but in place of genocide, what you got was things like little, you know, Lakota children being pulled away from their communities, put into Catholic schools, government-run schools, having their hair cut and being beaten if they spoke their original language. You had that. So you had what, they wouldn't all out kill you, but they would kill everything Indian about you. They would basically try to take your entire culture out of you and keep you alive. The other thing, too, was the forced sterilization of Indian women, which happened a lot. Just so that basically you could kill them off that way. So there's a lot of different methods. And it really, the way that the history of Indian nations coming together with Europeans or clashing with Europeans really has so much to do with the area that it happened in. You know, on the East Coast, it's a very different story. People weren't nearly as militant, or, you know, they wouldn't push against it, because it was like, well, here's these new weird people. They're kind of pale. They're kind of unusual. They've got different customs. But you had a really long history of trade up all and down that Mississippi River. The East Coast Indians nations were used to trading with people. That wasn't weird. It was like, all right, here come these new people. Might as well, we'll talk to them and then we'll trade with them and see what they have to say. And that's the old joke, like about Manhattan Island. You know, people will say, oh yeah, it was traded for beads, and oh, those people were so stupid doing that. Well, here's the thing. You're trading with a group that has no concept of land ownership. Manhattan Island and all that area in New York was really like a summer home for the Indian nations there, because it was nice. It was on the water. They'd go there in the summer when it was warm. You'd go fishing and do all that stuff. And then when it was cold, you'd move back further deep into the interior so you could be warmer. You wouldn't want to be out on the Atlantic Ocean in the winter. It just doesn't make any sense. So you'd migrate back inside. So this is what happened. You know, Europeans started showing up. And they started giving them gifts. And to Indian nations, I was like, well, that's normal. You go to somebody's house, you bring them a gift, so they're just being nice, you know. So they give them this stuff. They go back into the interior. They come back the next summer, and these white guys are building all these houses. And it's like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? And this whole idea that, well, you sold it to us, you know, because we gave you something, you gave us something, you know. And it's like, we didn't sell it. You know, there's a total miscommunication. You've got language barrier, and an entire culture is totally different. So, but up and down the East, it was a very different story. That's why down in like the area where I'm from, where the Cherokee were predominant, the Cherokee were really just...
Where exactly? You said...
Oh, I'm in Georgia.
I don't know. I was from New York. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, New York is really where the Haudenosaunee used to be. That's the people of the Longhouse, which, you know, most people know as the Iroquois Confederacy. That's what it was called by white people. And actually the Cherokee are a huge branch of that group that moved down, right? So most of the people that were from that area in New York now are in Canada or on the border of Canada, because that's where they were pushed, you know, in the land grabs. You know, they were pushed into reservations further up north. But originally that's where their land would have been, in New York and areas around there. So anyway, the East Coast was a different story. And Cherokee people, this will kick you, is that a lot of them during the time, you know, pre-Civil War and through the Civil War, they were very similar to white landowners. They had slaves, they had African slaves, they had land, they had plantations, they had crops. There's some really freaky pictures of Cherokee Indian guys all dressed up with the ascots and the suits looking just like the white guys. because a lot of the Cherokee really wanted to sort of integrate. So they actually created a typeface written language. They had a newspaper. They did all these things to sort of integrate with white culture, which is, it's so weird, but that is what happened. But it didn't say
it's kind of interesting, though. I mean, that's actually a very interesting point. Do you think that they had like an empathetic change of heart type of approach to that? Like that we really did like kind of come and invade this? Like what happened that would make them change their mind?
Well, the thing about that, well, who changed their mind?
Because, well, I mean, at a point, federal lines were drawn for their territory.
Absolutely, but
so
there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it because I think partly it was, you know, there's that thing where it's like you can kind of see this overwhelming power and the numbers are getting greater and greater and there's more Europeans coming. And so there's partly a reaction to that says, well, in order not to die out, in order not to be killed off or lose what we've got, we'll try to assimilate as much as we can. There's a little bit of that in there. The other thing, of course, is that, you know, of course, under Andrew Jackson, that's when the Trail of Tears happened. And after the Civil War, a lot of Cherokee actually fought on the side of the Confederacy in the South during the Civil War, which really enraged the North. That was part of the driving force behind opening up, you know, the Trail of Tears.
I've heard arguments for that before.
Yeah, it was part of it. There's a lot of different things. I remember something that Chief Joseph said. He was Nez Perce from, you know, like where Idaho was, the Coeur d'Alenes. And he said that the way that it kind of works is this a lot of the time. He said, you know, a white man will come to me and he'll say, I want to buy your horse. And I say, well, I don't want to sell my horse to you right now. So the white guy will go to my neighbor and he'll say, I want to buy Joseph's horse, and he won't sell it to me. And his neighbor says, well, don't worry about him. I'll sell you his horse. That's the way that would work a lot of the time. And so this whole idea that Indian people were completely on each other's side is just not true at all. And there were a lot of turncoats.
No, I didn't say that.
Stabbing each other in the back.
I didn't say that. Yeah. Maybe somebody did. I didn't say you said that, but there is definitely a lot of people believe that, but there really wasn't. No, I believed that the North Dakota Indians believed in their water source. I believed that.
Yeah.
With my whole heart, I believe that.
Yeah.
And that's the part they've been. I don't want to use the word raped, but I don't know what else. But they've been, you know, people have taken things from them. So many things.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Now
of
I
lies.
sound like Donald Trump.
A lot of lies. I mean, every treaty has been broken. Literally. I mean, every treaty that was ever signed has been broken. You know, and that's another thing Joseph says, like, the earth holds your grandmother in it. Would you sell your grandmother's bones? Would you sell your family's bones away? Would you do that? You know, and to, you know, it was just a totally different way of seeing things. It's not seeing the earth as just this thing that you know, rob of whatever you can get from
they knew we all had to drink water. And imagine Flint, Michigan. And I decided to tell these people that was the only time I had heard integrity. And Bernie, I believe, has integrity. For anything I hate him for, which is, I do hate him for going on tour with Tom Perez. But if he thinks it's the right judgment, after 40 years of proper votes in any congressional seat that he holds, I'm okay with his judgment. You know, I'm going to be okay with it.
I can definitely.
I'm not gonna...
I can understand what you're saying, Amy, and I feel the same way. And a lot of people don't feel the same way as maybe you or me do about that. But I definitely agree, because I think there's a little bit of a method to the madness right now. And I think that by doing that, he's trying to keep himself in the discussion. I think that Tim, he hit the nail on the head a couple times with that by kind of saying, you know, it's like you have to realize that someone's in this political sphere And if they start grabbing the mic every time they get and start, you know, blasting away about, oh, they cheated me and oh, they don't stuff, you know, immediately they're going to cut his mic. They're going to take him off the air. You're not going to hear from him anymore. And that'll be that. You know, they won't keep him in the discourse any longer. So, you know, I hope.
Yeah, but that won't really matter. I mean,
sure.
all the time.
I don't know for sure what the long-term plan is in his mind, or if he's just kind of playing it by ear.
But,
I can't.
But how can we question it? Because his has gone on for 30 years with consistent votes. I mean, I'll leave him a little bit of latitude, a little string on that.
Yeah, I agree. I understand what you're saying. I do. And I also understand people that are really pissed off at him. I get it. They want more out.
No, I do hate the D, I hate that.
Yeah.
After they voted for the money in politics, they're like, we're gonna reverse Obama.
Yeah. Oh, Forsaken, do you want to talk? I see you're over here in the chat. You're not going to interrupt us. We'd love you to talk.
No, come on.
Yeah, come on.
I fell asleep.
Hey.
I've been so tired. Only had a few hours sleep every day for the last 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, you've been so busy.
I fell asleep and just woke up, and then someone thought didn't realize I was a female. So Troxy said, "Talk." Yeah. So. So I have kind of a neutral name. It's hard to tell, you know. So, but yeah, I just woke back up a few minutes ago.
Well, what'd you dream about?
What?
What'd you dream about?
I don't know. I know I did. I did, but I lost it as soon as I woke up because then I heard the show still going on. So, I mean, sitting in here, I'm right here at the desk. Sleeping.
I had a retarded dream about Obama this afternoon. He was laying on the couch. No, do you want to hear this?
Sure.
I actually had a dream about Obama. He was laying on the couch, and I asked him a question that I thought was a valid question. And most of my questions I think are valid questions. So call me arrogant, call me what you will. But so I asked him something, and he said he just woke up, he was tired, and he walked away from it.
It sounds what would happen in real life.
Sounds about right.
Completely ignoring
That's actually what happened while I was sleeping last night.
I think one of the worst dreams that I ever had, it was like about Hillary. And I remember that like it was after she lost, and it was this weird thing where they were trying to like give her a new image or something, and so she was like coming out with like a new hairdo and all these new clothes, and but nobody wanted to hear anything from her. No, it wasn't working. Like no matter how much they repackaged her, it didn't matter.
Just like they did the election where she came out like a Barbie doll thing.
Ariel doesn't even know what to say. She didn't have any bad dreams.
I had a really weird dream last night that they were trying to put me in jail. Yeah, it was the IRS.
People and having political discourse online. You need to be locked up.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that.
We can start joking. The thing is, we could start joking about what dreams people have, but we shouldn't. Ever. We shouldn't do that. Because they're actually really in society. The 4-year-old in where Philando Castile was killed knew that the cops shouldn't do that and that she should be safe in her neighborhood, and we should know that. And she's 4. And I'm not a mother, but we should know that. And we know it in our dreams sometimes, even though I don't agree with clairvoyance. But go ahead.
No, I had a dream that the IRS was after me because I'm a self-employed person, and they were like, we're worried you're not paying enough in your taxes, and they were thinking about sending me to jail for 6 months, and I was really upset about it. I was just like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm selling stuff on eBay.
Right, because you probably haven't. You probably haven't.
Yeah, maybe
but
so. Yeah.
But that's the media. That
mean anything.
it's
I mean,
incredible.
set up you're guilty before innocent, and you're only innocent if you can pay me.
Hey,
and we have to, people have to sleep like people
I am here.
in America. Real people sleep like this in America.
It's just
18 people call and tell you about it.
it's unthinkable for me here in Norway to get stopped by a police officer and end up dead. Like, if you didn't do anything bad, it's just unthinkable.
You probably have no fly zones.
Well, the one time I got stopped for speeding, the police officer, he came over to me. I rolled down the window and he said how fast I was going.
Your bangs are too long.
What?
What does that have to do with anything?
Anyway, he proceeded by he was polite. He greeted me and he said that he was sorry, but he had to give me a ticket and that he couldn't let me, get off. And I was like, yeah, isn't that what you're supposed to do? Give me a ticket if I'm speeding? Like, apologizing for giving me a ticket.
Yeah.
I was like, well, okay.
You'd
Don't
never
think,
make a
what?
What's your name?
What's my name?
Oh, I don't want to just call you Norway.
Oh, well, it's Troxney here, but yeah. But I'm using.
What's your name?
Do your cops carry weapons? Do they have firearms on them?
They do. I'm not sure if they do right now, but at our National Day, they were carrying weapons. But usually they don't. But because of all the terrorism, the little terrorism we have had, they've been carrying arms
I love
for.
Norway.
What?
I love Norway for. I think it's. And most of the time, every time I know anything about it, it has integrity. I mean, it's super cold, but it has integrity.
Well, it's warm right now.
Well, the first time was about your prison system. Then I read it in the New York Times, and you let people go after 25 years, no matter what. And you agree with rehabilitation.
It's not
and
true.
I like that.
Not no matter what. It's
No,
if they are fit
you
to
try to rehabilitate.
Yeah, we try to rehabilitate them, but before they are when they get they could get 21 years in jail, but there's there could be a condition to it, like they have to pass like an examination or something to see if they're fit to be released into society. So they could, in theory, sit in jail all their life if they aren't deemed fit for society.
Which is actually a current, and I'm not really sure about this, I wasn't born in that time, but the Manson period in America, and there's always an outrage. There's always an outrage based on what media does and what people do. And I'm not sure they take into account whether people have been rehabilitated. So, I mean, there could be really bad crimes, but who's judging that and where is it coming from? It's kind of interesting. The other great thing I think about Norway is I actually play bridge, and I'm young for a bridge player and old for a person, but I love that somebody from Norway actually cleared a card game, Bridge, of cheating recently, and I'm a huge fan. Boy Brogeland. I'm a huge fan. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. And so, in essence, I think that a country that does nice things for criminals or does nice things and wants people to do good things for what they do have integrity. So I think, and since I was in 7th grade, I think Norway's great. So.
Yeah, we have an election this year, and I'm going to vote for socialistic West Wing party. Not left wing, not west. Sorry. Not really sure how to explain what they stand for in comparison to where your parties are at, because it's just so different. But I guess they're probably a bit. They're probably a bit left for.
It's like it's healthcare. It's also time off. It's vacation. We're talking about, we live in a country in America right now that's supposedly really great and rich, and we can't work a 40-hour week and at minimum wage and afford a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, I think there's probably only 12 counties in the whole entire United States where you can actually work 40 hours and be able to live.
Yeah.
Well, this party I'm voting for, they want to take the next step. Like, they want to be fair towards the poor countries, give them a fair shot, because we're just taking advantage of them now. And, well, there's a lot more, but... Well, they want to pull out of the EU, actually. They want to. They also want to stop supporting these regime changes, because we're supporting them.
Do you think you're better than Sweden?
It's much the same.
Trying to get the. It was kind of a joke.
I don't have any.
It was a joke.
Actually, I'm not that fond of countries. I wish it would just be like, we're people everywhere. I don't see the need for countries.
Get rid of all those lines.
Yeah, exactly. Do what's best for everyone.
I gotta be honest with you. You kind of like lost me at the whole Manson thing. Were you trying to tell me that Manson could be rehabilitated? I mean,
no. Oh my God, you're talking to me. No, God, no. I'm talking about people who like fell victim to. I'm not talking about, and I'm also admitting right out, I didn't grow up in that era or anything, so I don't know.
It's kind of weird.
Really, really horrible thing. But everybody who's associated with him and the legal system at the same time, and whether they're not habilitated, could be just a publicity, like, we're not going to let this person out because of the, I guess, publicity on the case. And I don't think I think that that's very likely. Unfortunately, I think that's very likely.
I think there were a couple. People that actually have been let out. It's odd because my stepdad was actually related to Tex Watson, so I'm kind of, I'm like, I never met the guy, obviously, because he died way before me, or way before I was around. I actually was born in '68, but I heard enough about it. Yeah, it was a really horrible situation. As far as rehabilitation goes, and I'm not talking about those guys. It's a very tough situation for people coming out of prison, because it's very tough to actually get a job and stay straight and all of that kind of thing. I mean, I have a federal job. There's no way that anybody could, actually be bonded and actually have a federal job anymore, or, it's very difficult for them to get a straight job. So it's very tempting to go back, and go back to crime. As far as Norway or Sweden or any, I have no idea. I'd love to hear, how they rehabilitate people. I mean,
it's not even just about rehabilitation, though. I think in this country sometimes it's about the negative press that something gets, and
I think
that should have absolutely nothing to do with something that someone is rehabilitated for or not rehabilitated.
I'm kind of confused. What do you
Maybe
mean
they
by
threaten to send them here.
Oh, okay.
Well, I wasn't grown up in that either, but Charles Manson in my psyche kind of sucks. I didn't know him. I didn't even know the news when I knew him, but anyone who was taken under him and that and blah blah blah, it was such a big thing in the era that when it comes up, it's so mean.
Weren't a couple of those guys eventually? Didn't a couple of those guys like Squeaky Fromm or didn't a couple of them get out eventually after like 25 years?
Well,
or something?
maybe, but 2 people recently did not, and I was wondering. One woman did not, and then another person did not. I think just recently, like this year, like within the last month.
Yeah, there's one.
Because otherwise I wouldn't have known about it.
One of the guys is up right now, and I don't know if they just turned him down or they haven't yet. I forget which one.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah, I think it was 2 very recently, but I think it's such a high profile case that people refuse to actually evaluate real facts. Like when I'm not like I didn't live in Charles Manson's time. I don't agree with what he did, but what certain people did.
Right.
Retrospect should not really influence whether people are rehabilitated or not, but they do.
I can't remember who actually. Yeah. I can't remember who actually performed killed Sharon Tate, but that person should never get out. Whoever that was, never, because that was just horrific. Whoever was involved in that, it's just it's the degree of the, it was just,
yeah,
and it was bad.
I know. I'd be a defense attorney, so I'd argue anything. But all right. No,
okay.
No, I wouldn't argue anything. I disagree with what I just said. I wouldn't double down on that.
You are an attorney, aren't you?
No, I wouldn't. I would never argue certain things.
Just to give an example of somebody that'll argue anything, look at Hillary Clinton defended a
I wouldn't
rapist.
argue anything. Nor would I prosecute everything either. I like there. There's a line.
Come on, you're scaring them.
I wouldn't want to prosecute.
What are you doing to that rabbit?
He doesn't like the screen, poor guy. Oh, Pete. He's
Nope. Nobody.
He wants to run. He's my wild.
Is a serial bunny killer.
Yeah, they run like crazy. See some wild rabbits. They run like well.
What do they run? What do they run, Ariel?
What? What's that?
How fast do they run?
Oh, they run so fast. That if they didn't like me, I would never be able to get them. They're very happy. They're very good. But Dave, I was about to make a comment on the whole Charles Manson story. Me and my mom, actually, we watched a recent documentary all about that crime and about the people that were involved. And it was a couple of the young women that were his cult followers that committed those murders. Yeah, that whole thing was so bizarre. My mom, of course, was, gosh, let me think. When did that happen? What was the exact year? Do you recall?
I don't know.
It was 65. It was before even me.
Yeah, so my mom, she was about 20. She was in her mid-20s when that happened, and she remembers it very, very well. She also remembers the Robert Speck killing all those student nurses. There's some crazy things.
Speck.
Yeah,
Speck was in 77.
Yeah. Okay. That's when I
recently died
how
a few
old
years
are you,
ago.
Ariel? Because I read that book. My mom, my face looks a little like my mom, but anyway, they used to think she was Patty Hearst.
Oh gosh.
From the 70s, right? So I read Jeffrey Cuban's book, which I thought was super interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the Manson murders, and
it was 1967.
August of 69. It was August of 69. I just looked it up. So I was like 1 year old.
I would recommend that book. For I don't know why, just because I don't know. I've never read another Jeffrey Cuban book, so I'm not going to promote him. But historically, I think it's rather interesting from a progressive perspective. Historical on an issue.
But anyway, I was just going to comment on this. We watched it, and it was actually really detailed. But I think in a way there was an odd period of time back then, and we were even talking about it kind of in that 60s and 70s, that there were a lot of these kind of cultish, groups where people got involved, and they thought they were getting involved in an alternative lifestyle or a movement or a different kind of spirituality or things like that. And it came out of a lot of the repression and the disillusion, of the 50s especially. And so it's like you had all these kind of weird groups, and most of them didn't end up in serial killings or any kind of, crazy murders. But
some people did.
You sort of kind of got to understand where that kind of thing came from. A lot of it did come from that feeling of, well, this typical repressed life hasn't worked. So, you get some charismatic, guy.
Girl,
batting all these
live in the land of
ideals.
I live in the land of serial killers, so I know. I mean, Long Island, you have a ton of them.
Yeah.
It's like Berkowitz, and then you had the one guy a few years ago, and then you have the unsolved beach murders that have been going on for a while. Like,
I don't think they know who that was, though. I mean,
they don't. They still don't.
Well, that's not even okay. That's not the same.
What do you mean beach murders? Like,
well, it's not the same. We're trying to get people out of jail, maybe because it's not fair. I mean, we have to capture that guy, and then we have to decide that from like 80 years from now.
No, there are a series of unsolved Gilgo beach murders on Long Island. It's been going on for a while.
Yes, I know.
No, Eric was asking about it.
Huh?
No, I was asking about it, Kevin.
I didn't even understand what you just said.
I don't want Charles Manson, people who are associated with them, to be not permitted bail because they were involved in a high-profile murder case.
No, it's not about that. It's about the horrific nature of the killings.
Yeah,
it really is.
I've seen the crime scene photos for that, and
but you have given I mean, there's a lot of years. I think it's very reactionary. I think there's little to learn from it. I think people have to look at it a little bit more than they would because of the publicity. I think that they should.
Sure.
And that's a should. I'm not saying yes. They have to.
I haven't followed all of the people, as much as I used to. And I don't know what their behavior has been in prison, and how they've developed and all that stuff. To be completely honest with you, I know Manson is a lunatic and will always be a lunatic and should never get out of jail. But
I normally try not to. I try not to watch him. If I can interrupt and say, I don't like to watch insane, murderous people.
So, what do you guys think about capital punishment? You think it should exist at all, or
maybe if you're like a rich oligarch, I'm not against it.
I'm against.
It's not even in America. It's not even about capital punishment. I'm very upset that they actually are experimenting with capital punishment in states that still have capital punishment here, with drugs that they don't know are going to do the correct job because you will not import them from elsewhere.
Where's that happening? I haven't heard about that.
It was like a Supreme Court case like a year ago.
Kyle Klinsky has covered that a bit now and then.
I in all honesty, I can't completely be against it. I mean, Dore or Gacy or all of those guys. I mean, why are we paying for those guys?
Yeah, I feel like there are some like clear-cut cases, like this Norwegian mass murderer we had, killed like 120 people. There's no doubt at all that he was the one who did it. Like, just get him out of here.
Have you ever had it?
What?
What's that?
Have you ever had it in Norway? No.
Capital
punishment.
Capital punishment. Well, let me tell you of how Norway became a Christian nation. Our king, he made his people go from door to door, and people got the choice: become a Christian or die.
Right.
So, capital punishment. If they
and
did.
you chose?
Well, this was not while I was alive.
It was a
It's
joke.
like,
Yeah.
900,
1100
years ago, maybe?
Yeah, 1100.
Yeah.
It was a joke.
That was my family too.
That my feelings on, I grew up in a very kind of pro capital punishment state. Georgia, the South, is very like hang 'em high. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I think that in some ways I really agree with Toxney, because I think that the biggest arguments against capital punishment and executions are the psychological damage first that it does to the people that actually have to carry out the executions. It really messes with them, and a lot of people end up with severe psychological trauma. Well, you're not a killer, and yet you're killing this person. Even though maybe they had it coming, it's still going to do a number on you.
But I would think the people who go to do the killing are people that are more inclined to want to do it. I don't think somebody, gets into that who doesn't.
I think you need somebody with the right mindset to go and do it.
It's a big jump. And a lot of people just mentally, emotionally cannot handle it.
I haven't even gone that far to find that I disagree with it.
The other thing
I don't have to go that far.
The other thing I have against it, of course, is cases of getting the wrong victim, the wrong killer, the wrong person, because that happens all the time. You have somebody in jail 20 years and you find out they didn't do it.
No,
what if
they're an issue. But the actual guy killing them, I don't even have to get that far. I'm just saying, I don't.
But in cases like this Dylan Roof kid, why are they sitting around looking at this boy? He absolutely murdered these people. He even said he thought that he might not do it because they were so nice to him. And then he carried it out. What in the world?
Do you know what
video of him
what
doing?
I thought about that? This is not popular, and I'm definitely a defense attorney in my heart. But I think that guy was mentally ill, and the fact that he won't let his attorney say that he's mentally ill is crazy.
I think he
I'm
knew
not
what he was
trying
doing
to.
was wrong.
I'm not trying to argue he's mentally ill as an attorney who's being paid by him, but that guy is fucking mentally ill. He is. He is mentally ill, and he is young.
But I think that by the same token, he knew what he was doing was wrong. He was not insane. Yes, he was sick.
Right.
Anybody who does that was.
But if he's mentally ill, then we leave him to change. We don't have to let him out. That's our prerogative.
That's a pretty big jump for me.
Completely retarded, or the mental illness where they have no empathy for other people. You know what I mean? But they're still completely, fully functional.
He had enough awareness. They were nice, and he had enough awareness to realize that what he was doing was
I
wrong.
think that we as a society have. I don't know. I would actually accept that. I would actually accept that in the reason that was not argued for him. I think that needs to be argued for him. I don't think that he should be subjected to death because somebody didn't argue that for him, and I think that's what happened. And I don't. Obviously, I don't condone what he did. I don't.
Well, you'd have to really make a case for actual insanity, like in the case of Andrea Yates, who drowned her 5 children in a bathroom.
He is insane.
They really knew.
The thing is, the people who claim insanity all the time. They're not fucking insane. They're guilty.
Well,
yeah, but you have a lot of people of sound mind doing horrible things because they just want to, or whatever lead them there. It's not. It has nothing to do with insanity.
He was racially motivated. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he was
Richard Speck or Ted Bundy or those guys. I mean, yeah, they have a mental illness, but if you let them out, they're going to kill people again.
No.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, they're psychotic. I mean, they have a psychosis. And, like I was saying about Andrea Yates, I mean, she was absolutely clinically insane. She had been warned by her doctor not to have more children because she had a severe brain chemical imbalance that was set off by pregnancy. She went into deeper and deeper psychosis every time she had a child, and she didn't listen to their doctor. She had another kid, and it boom, she's going to be in a institution for the rest of her life.
Right, and you talked about all the times that people have been diagnosed or told they were something, and this man was not. He decided for himself, as a sociopathic killer, that he was not something. Refused to allow a scientist, a psychologic person, a lawyer, anybody tell him what he was not. And just be sentenced to something. And I think that should be listened to. The absence sometimes of what people say or do should be listened to sometimes. And we all know that. I know we all know that, or we wouldn't be here.
I think the thing in the case of Dylan Roof that really is very incriminating is the fact that he, previous to the killings, was very adamant about his racism. I mean, he's standing there, showing, I hate black people. And, that was his whole motivation with this crime. And I do believe that he knew what he was doing is wrong. And that's really where, in a court, that's the way they're going to look at it. They're going to say, were they insane? If you're literally insane and you were not aware that what you were doing is wrong, that's why Andrea Yates is in an institution and not in a prison. She didn't really get it. She had deep schizophrenia and all kinds of things. She thought God and the devil and angels were all talking to her. She wasn't there. She wasn't all there. You know, she didn't have
that. What happened to her husband?
What I'm really doing is morally wrong. She thought, I'm getting rid of my kids. Same kind of cognitive dissonance, like, you know, the Goebbels. I'm going to kill my kids because it's a terrible world and God and the angels are going to do this.
Didn't her husband get prosecuted?
What's that?
Didn't her husband get prosecuted? He should have
Well,
been.
I think he did have some kind of, because I mean it was actually very irresponsible of him to conceive another child, knowing what it would mentally do to her. Yeah, the whole thing was really tragic.
What do you think, Snork?
Well, I remember kids going missing from our school. Something happened with the scouts. One of them was caught molesting a kid in the park, and so our scouts masters kind of like, one committed suicide. One of them moved to the Chicago area, where they found 30 kids in his basement, bodies in his basement. So I think that it's just, Illinois right now has a 20%, 40% before they stop killing people, track record of failure to find the right person. But in cases where they do find the right person, I say minimize the risk to the guards, and there are other methods to kill people, simple, clean, and I think we should be using them.
To be perfectly honest, I don't know much about the Charles Manson murders. I don't want to watch them. I don't.
Charles Manson.
I care about them, but I'm too young to, like, I didn't grow up in it and blah, blah, blah. But there are things that we want to do with our rehabilitation or prison system. And I don't think that we think about what we do with it.
Yeah.
And whether it's fair or not.
In this case, though.
We prosecute or we don't prosecute people based on how much money they have, or whether they're corporate or not, or we do a lot of things. So we can't say that something that somebody did 3 decades ago that somebody else tells us they did 3 decades ago and was totally bad or was totally good is okay. I think we need to evaluate it fairly. And all I'm saying about these things is I want to evaluate them fairly. And every media coverage I've seen does not evaluate the people who have been denied parole fairly. What have they done? What have they not done? I'm sorry if that's too much to ask.
Welcome, independent outsider. Been listening?
Well,
what?
In the case of the person that lived by me, we had a lot of assemblies where they were trying to convince, because they thought the kids were running away, and that's probably kinder in the parents' eyes than to go back and investigate all the cases in the Waterloo area of missing children. But they found over 30 bodies in Chicago. There might have been 10 to 15 in Waterloo, Iowa, and I think of the cases where they found, I think he's a much more a violent case than Manson's, and I think it was correct to not have somebody, because I don't believe the prison should be a place where we punish people by putting them at risk of other people that are cannibals and stuff like this.
Absolutely.
So I think
I agree with that too.
I think we have to end the prison mentality of throw them in a cell, let them get raped. No. The punishment should just be in the jail. If they're too severe to be in the jail, they should be killed. But the other thing is, when they're in the jail, they're complete responsibility of the cops to not have any harm come to them. If that means sheets that are sewn to the bed so that they can't hang themselves, yeah. But cameras to prevent and tase people if they attack another one. When in the Norway, I've seen instances where they have a room that actually they can sit down at a table and write.
I don't know about
prison.
serial killers in Norway. That would be a very interesting.
I spoke to a prison guard here once.
Yeah, from everywhere.
Do I have the wrong country? Did Norway have all the children of the one political party get killed on an island?
Yes, that's the mass murder I was talking about earlier.
Oh my God, is that like Lord of the Flies? I hate that book so much.
No. The kids were on an island for a retreat.
No.
And somebody came in on a boat with a machine gun or something and started killing all the kids. It was a big tragedy. Really, the nation.
This is how it works. This is how they are treating that person here in Norway now. He gets his own room, and whenever he wants to go to the gym, it's a full gym like you have in school. Everybody has to go out. All the other prisoners, they can't be there. So if he wants to go to the gym, they just let him go there for his own safety. They have to get all the other prisoners. He gets special treatment because he is at risk from the other prisoners. They would likely kill him. And he was complaining about his PlayStation 2 some years ago because he wanted the PlayStation 3 instead. And this is a guy who killed over 100 people.
And these are the people who would have been your national leaders in 20 years, correct? I mean, it was your leadership base for a whole generation got wiped out.
For one party.
Yeah, for one party. That's pretty severe.
Jesus.
And that's why that's why Ariel was onto something. This guy, he is of sound mind. He did it basically as a terrorist. He did it to further his own agenda, just like Obama. All the leaders in America, they're killing Muslims for their own agenda. It's the same thing.
All those sociopaths. No, actually, it's kind of funny that this subject comes up because amongst all my many diverse interests, actually, criminology and the study of, criminal psychology is actually a big interest of mine. I've done a ton of study research. I've watched many, many, many documentaries and things about, all these various murder stories, whether they're famous or not so famous or, different countries. And mostly with the interest of understanding the mentality that, produces people, that commit, violent crimes, especially ones that continue to do it. And something that I've noticed, and it's usually men, except maybe in the case of Eileen Wuornos, which I actually have a real soft spot in my heart for Eileen Wuornos, even though what she did was awful. She had a horrible growing up, terrible, unreal. I mean, she was impregnated by an uncle when she was 13. Her parents kicked her out. She lived in the woods and the ice up in the north, and it was just awful. You can absolutely see where someone like that would go off the deep end entirely. But the thing that you really see in the case of men, there's a real combination when boys are reaching sexual maturity around 12, 13 puberty age. If they experience the connection with both violence and sexuality, it really tilts them in a bad way. Richard Ramirez, for example, he, you know, was around that age, and he had this really crazy, I believe it was either a relative or a family friend. There was this guy that would come over, and he was extremely violent, and he had been in Vietnam, and he had done all these awful things, and he would pull out these pictures of the women and tell him about all the awful things that they did, you know, to rape them and torture them and all these awful things that they did. Not only that, but this guy was, you know, currently violent. He actually shot his girlfriend in front of Ramirez. A lot of really bizarre things happened to him. There's this intrinsic thing that happens at that point of development in an adolescent boy. If they link sexuality with violence in some way, and they're already a little off, it really sends them on a downward spiral. And I've noticed that again and again and again. Now, in the case of Jeffrey Dahmer, he was actually killed in prison. I don't know if people remember that, but yeah, he was stabbed
with a shovel. Yeah,
yeah,
I was actually thinking about that whole thing.
Yeah, and
when they were talking about, when Snorky was talking about, you know, how,
yeah,
you know, he should have been executed. You know,
probably, yeah. I mean, it's in a lot of ways, I feel like he might have actually preferred it. He was extremely a strange person. Of course, there's no getting around it. All serial killers or violent criminals tend to be strange in some way, but he was extra strange. He was very, very introverted. He lived in this really funny little apartment, and he was this single white guy in a neighborhood of mostly black people. And his neighbor was a lady, and she said, "Why are you here? You know, why is this single white guy living in our neighborhood?" It was a little odd to her, but
right.
She got to be friends with him, and she would invite him in to sit and eat a sandwich or just whatever, and she never thought anything about him because he was very quiet and kept to himself. Very typical, almost like a computer geek type, you know, just real quiet to himself. And he would keep these aquariums. It was a big thing he was into. He'd keep aquariums in his upstairs apartment, and a lot of times if there was a smell or something odd, he would explain it as being the aquarium. Now, when he was a little kid, his father noticed that he was very into anatomy. And as a child, you're thinking, oh, cool, my kid likes to study natural world or whatever. And so his dad would teach him to dip, you know, like a rat carcass in acid, and then, you know, look at the skeleton and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately is something he carried on with his victims. Now, I think a big part of his psychology, he was definitely had borderline personality. He also had a lot of self-loathing directed inward. He was gay, and he was very closeted, and there was a lot of self-hatred, and almost all his victims, I believe, were men. And
there was one situation that infuriated me, because there was a teenage boy, I think it was 18 maybe,
yes,
and may have even been Vietnamese, and
right,
he escaped, and he got out,
yes,
and the cops ignored it.
They ignored it. And it is so disgusting, because yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, because, you know, the whole idea, and here's the thing where they didn't take it seriously, because they're thinking, oh, this is just a couple gay guys, lovers, spat, whatever. And so they didn't even, they didn't give him any credence. And so he ended up getting killed. And actually very similar to the way that things went down with Bundy, because he was finally discovered because a victim escaped from him. Same way with Dahmer. He had a guy that escaped from him. Dahmer would usually find, like you said, young teenage boys, early 20s, that were poor, didn't have a lot of money, and he would invite them to say, I'll take pictures of you and pay you for them. And so that's how it would start. That's how he would get people. But this one guy got away from him and could positively identify him, and that's when everything came to an end. But the cops that were on the scene for Dahmer, when they discovered everything in his house, the guy came out, and he literally said he felt like his face was just green, and he was just pouring sweat, and he told the other guys, they're like, you're not going to believe what you're going to find in there. Because it wasn't, I mean, he had literally a human head in his refrigerator. I mean, talk about dead.
I remember that whole thing. I can't. Yeah. When did he get caught? Early 90s. Yeah,
it was. It was an unbelievable story. And I feel like, in a lot of ways, yet again, yeah, Dahmer was truly troubled, but he definitely knew what he was doing was wrong at the same time. I mean, he was definitely avoiding and evading capture and discovery, which denotes a level of awareness of guilt. I think he had a lot of self-hatred. I really do. I think he hated himself in a lot of ways, and in some odd respect, he was taking this out on his victims. It was a real self-loathing turned outward.
Well, that's the same thing with Eddie Gein too.
Yes,
he had a lot of
absolutely.
He was trying to hide his face, and the whole thing with the mask, the skin mask. Ew.
Absolutely. He didn't even really kill that many people in comparison to typical serial killer numbers. He was actually very he wasn't very active.
Okay. Can I, Ariel? You just said he didn't kill that many people. I just want people who were serial killers. Like I'm not defending fucking serial killers for someone is doing, nor permitting to say the word fuck. But I think you cannot, you just can't do that.
Do what exactly?
You can't defend just killers and then just say. Sometimes it's publicity that convicts people, and you can't erase it. And if it's 30 or 4 years ago,
publicity machine that kicks up rounds.
I know. You put Kevin on the line.
That's what they did to Eileen Wuornos. There are two very good documentaries about her, and one of them is called "The Selling of a Serial Killer," because it's absolute disgusting media circus. And that actually, after Dahmer was convicted, they tore down the apartment complex where he lived because the people that lived there had a circus of visitors coming in and out all the time, wanting to be photographed next to the, sofa he sat on and all this sort of thing. That's why you get these strange women. I mean, Richard Ramirez got married in prison. It's almost a sort of celebrity that gets made out of these people. And what they did was absolutely vile. It really was.
Well, that was the whole Amityville horror thing with that Amityville house. And
I just don't want anybody associated with him to not be because of publicity. That's the only thing I'm asking. Not that they're wrong. Not that they were wrong initially. Not that that's what it is. But we all have to take things in context. Look, I mean, we're all a victim of our context, and we're all tired of people saying, well, I did that when I was your age. But when I was your age meant a different fucking period of time. I'm tired of people saying that. So we're either going to be hypocritical or we're not going to be hypocritical about a subject, or we're going to look at it from a whole bunch of point of views, or we're not going to look at it from a whole bunch of point of views.
Oh, I mean, what I'm talking about right now is not necessarily in defense or against anything. I'm just talking about the pure psychology of where, of understanding where violent crime kind of roots from, and the way that it's seen, or the way that personality disorders are sometimes defined, and it's true even in a court of law. There's definitely, they literally have a scale on which
the court of law who just
like a crime of passion. What's considered a crime of passion is a lot lower in sentencing. Like, say you came in and my lawyer was sleeping with another woman, and boom, I flipped out. No, I'm not trying to do any sort of pro or con or anything. I'm just talking about the pure study of criminal psychology and understanding personality.
I'm going to flip this thing on its head for a second.
Yes.
If
do it.
If every I'm gonna if all the serial killers are becoming famous, then you know what? Every time someone calls for police help, it should be freaking publicized. At least in the town that it happens. And I think that a lot of that stuff gets pushed under the rug. At least investigate it. If somebody is literally is that unhinged and they actually call a cop in and then threaten a cop to the point where the cop does have to protect themselves, okay, but there are a lot of these cases and it just seems like they're getting
are you looking at from all right, there's a couple questions. I mean, I don't have all the questions. It's 3:46. It's 3:46 in the morning on a Tuesday in New York, but I'm gonna do my best. But the thing is, I mean, people aren't going to ask those questions, and they're not going to ask those questions in time they happen. We're talking about Charles Manson happening 40 years ago today. They did not have the resources. They didn't have the anything. They had the public outrage. If we deal with the public outrage today, it's one of the things I hate the most. We outrage on everything. We outrage on Twitter. I don't even have Twitter. I don't care. I don't care what people tweet. I don't want CNN, who makes $1 billion, to report to me what people tweet. I don't care. What I want them is to have a reasonable review of what their circumstances are.
Okay.
And if
I also
you are
don't really care too much about tweets.
If you are a reasonable person, you want a reasonable review of what the facts are. If you're talking about Russia, if you're talking about the DNC, if you're talking about Bernie, if you're talking about anything, you want a reasonable review. And I don't care. And I just feel like when it's reported, it is absolutely just, it's Manson.
Well,
no,
as that,
cruel.
I'm talking about
problem.
Castillo. I'm talking about these kids getting shot. And there are, in many of these cases, it's filmed. You see film of these guys getting shot. And, I'm not talking about Twitter outrage. I'm talking about actual people getting shot. And in some cases, they're calling for the police to come in because of a domestic disturbance, or they got robbed, or whatever.
Yeah, and a girl got shot for that somewhere in the middle America state. She got shot for that. Her boyfriend called because she was drunk. No, a couple days ago? That happened more than once then.
No, I understand, but I think the one you're talking about, I think she had a knife. I'm not sure if that's the one you're talking about.
They called the cops. The cops had to shoot her because she was drinking and she had a gun in the house. Was sleeping and had a gun in the house. That's right.
Okay. Did she have it in her hand?
No, she was sleeping.
Okay, well, that's my point.
And they shot her
How
dead.
Is she right.
She's dead. She's dead today. Ask her.
Right. Okay. But that's my point. There are a lot of there's a lot of focus on mass killing, and there should be. There should be. But I think that people who get shot unnecessarily by anyone, including police, those cases should be treated just as seriously as someone who gets shot in an Ariana Grande concert.
I agree, but that was so media at the time. It was so media at the time. It was just, that was the media. Charles Manson was the media. There's one guy, scientist, with his hand over his face. But I actually read, I read Jeffrey Stevens' book about the woman who looked like my mother, Patty Hearst, and they actually just wanted food for homeless people in California at the time. And they were super crazy. And they had guns and they were being crazy. Is that weird? It's weird. I'm sorry.
I have a hard time following you. But in the case of serial killers, I don't think has there ever been a case where they don't get a proper evaluation of their psyche?
No, I'm not suggesting that I can go there either. But
no, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying.
But bad things in the news get such bad things in the news. They're never given a fair chance. And you have to go to the extreme.
I just can't see that. I mean,
All right, I gotta go.
In most cases, the evidence against serial killers are, you know, they're pretty. It's a slam dunk case usually, and they, I think they always evaluate their psyche professionally. And
we're talking about people who are associated with it.
Okay, yeah. Well, how frequent is that? I mean,
I think
most of them.
I think we live in a period of time where more and more now than ever, I think violent criminals do get more of an evaluation than ever. I mean, in the old days, it was just like you did something, hang them. There was no trial, there was no nothing. I think we give people sometimes even more than their fair shake to understand where they're coming from. I don't believe that they're not usually getting some kind of help, especially in a high-profile case. But the thing is, I mean, these are real stories, and somebody has to defend criminals. Somebody has to defend criminals. Whether it's a high-profile case or not, there's always going to be, if all you can have is a public defender, yeah, you're going to have it. You know, there's somebody in the business of doing that. Hillary Clinton, hell, she was a trial lawyer. She defended a guy that raped a teenage girl till she was nearly dead. And a lot of people hate Clinton to this day for that.
And she laughed.
Yeah, and she laughed in an interview talking about how she got the guy off. And she's a pretty
Look, I never laughed about
that. But the fact of the matter is, criminals get lawyers. They get lawyers. They get representation, whether or not they deserve it. They get it, you know. And I think the Ariana Grande killings, you said it was all media, but I mean, those killings really happened. Those women and those kids really died. And in my opinion, the media didn't focus on it for but a few days, you know, and in my estimation, I don't watch TV, but you know, what I'm seeing on news or on social media, I mean, that's what I'm seeing is they really, you know, we focus on it for a few days and then we move along to the next atrocity. You know, we have a very, very short attention, you know, set here. We have ADHD across the country, as far as I'm concerned.
So you feel
I do feel as a lawyer. There was one time I was working as an extern for a federal public defender, and I didn't even know what a gun was, and then I found an illegal gun. But I found a way to get the gun out of evidence. And I felt bad as a human being. Like, I felt good. I mean, because the Constitution. And I felt bad as a human being because he shouldn't have had this. So I walked home and I didn't know how I was supposed to fucking feel. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel. How are you supposed to feel?
So what you have, the biggest problem you have.
Yeah, you have an illegal gun.
No, but I mean, you were talking about how you don't feel like those who conspire with serial killers get the fair shake. Is that primarily your concern, or?
I felt that, well, he didn't deserve to get approached by police because that was not fair via our Constitution, and yet he had an illegal gun. So I got his gun that shouldn't exist in the first place. It didn't even exist. It didn't exist anymore. And I walked home and I just thought, who am I? And it's really, really hard. What for me? It was hard for me. It was cute. I wrote a winning brief. I did. I wrote a very good brief, and it should win. But the thing is, most of the shit that goes to the Supreme Court today, I'm not sure should win or shouldn't win. I don't know. I have not great. I got a bad grade in con law and a really great grade in advanced con law. So I'm not really sure what to tell you. But it was really hard. It was very hard to find that. And if you want to know something very funny, when you hear the term gerrymandering, when you read that in law school, the first thing I did when I said, what the fuck is this, and why am I reading about it, and why is this the con law case? And I laughed. Because I was like, what the fuck is this? This has nothing to do with the Constitution. I didn't understand, and if somebody could explain to me why gerrymandering has anything to do with the Constitution of the United States of America, I'd be happy to listen to them. It was really funny.
Well, I don't think anyone here likes corruption.
That's funny.
Funny?
No, it's not funny at all. Actually, I thought it was really sad. I think I said I went home that day very sad because I didn't know whether I had done something good or done something bad. You know, I went home and I didn't know how to feel about myself.
Wait, so somebody had an illegal gun and they were arrested for it, and you removed it from the evidence room?
That's correct. No, I didn't remove it from the evidence room. I wrote a brief, a motion, to have it not be in trial, and it was approved.
Well, what were they arrested for to begin with?
Walking around.
Okay.
Being black
That's illegal
in
now?
Nebraska with not enough proof to be arrested, to be searched.
Okay, so you were saying that
He
that
had a
it was
hoodie
an
on.
illegal search, that it was an illegal
It was a gun. It's a gun that wasn't even. I wouldn't even know what a gun looks like a regular gun. And they're like, "Well, my boss was like, yeah, that's an illegal even like connection to a gun." And I'm like, "What are you talking? Like, I don't even get it." I was like, "No," I made the argument anyway. I mean, he was wearing a sweatshirt. It was dark. There was graffiti. Like, who the fuck cared? It was like 0 degrees, and he was wearing a sweatshirt, and he was black. I mean, fuck. A robot's gonna write that in 5 years, and I don't care. But
Okay, but you're saying they found this gun because they searched him illegally, and he was giving any reason to to be searched.
Yes, because he searched him illegally in 2000, maybe 8.
Okay, what reason did they give for what reason did they give for searching him to begin with?
Oh yeah, there was graffiti on the wall near where he was.
Yeah, we need context. Like, it took a while to learn that you were a lawyer. I didn't get that until not long ago. So
I didn't think that. Don't tell people.
what?
Don't tell people that. That's a terrible thing to tell people.
No, but we need the context to understand more easily.
Well, no, but anyway, I just, it's just, I don't want rehabilitation has nothing to do, from what I know, to the crimes that they fucking commit. It has to do with whether or not it is actually like publicly, like, pro or con. It doesn't have to do with how I feel about it. That had to do with how I felt about it, right? I didn't feel good. I put a gang member probably back on the street. I didn't feel good about it. But how I felt about it was I did my job. He shouldn't have done that. Now, I don't even fucking care because they can intrude our internet space. They're dealing with their guns. Even New York actually recently had a gun bill that people will be able to take their guns into New York. I don't even think that's a Bloomberg proposition. Very interesting. You can all say I'm terribly unhinged, and that's fine and probably totally right, but I'd love your opinions.
Well, I'm not following. You said a proposition to allow bringing guns into New York. Was that it?
Yes.
Is that illegal currently? I thought you guys carried guns everywhere, and it's not.
In
It's not
Manhattan?
legal to
No,
cross
we don't.
state.
We have no guns.
You have no guns in New York?
No.
Really?
No, I would never have had any.
I don't think he meant you personally.
No, I thought I read a piece a long time ago, well, last year, that a lot of the guns in New York came from Vermont or something.
My favorite New York piece about killing stuff is Pearson v. Post from like 1800, and it's like how to, like, mere pursuit is not capture. It says so. That's how you claim your fucking like deer in the wood. Mere pursuit is not capture. So you have to like mortally wound it before it's actually yours. It's really. I made that joke to my mom. She didn't think it was really funny. I think Erik also thinks it's kind of funny.
Penny, for your thoughts, Erik?
That's funny, right? Come on. You know what's extra funny? My law professor in the property class was named Pearson, but it was Pearson as opposed to Pierson. Triggered. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, guys. I think it's time for some sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm pretty tired. And I still have stuff to do.
You do?
Yes. It looks like, I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah.
Random research? I could do it. I was a librarian once. Yes. Angel's got it. I'm so mad at him. He was my environmental law professor. I'm so mad at him. And he's from Nebraska, and I'm so mad at him. And he was so amazing, and I'm so mad at him. Pearson. Erik. ERIC. He should have. I emailed him. I actually emailed him on this Dakota Access Pipeline thing, and he didn't fucking care. And I said, "You don't care." I was so mad. I was so mad because he was my favorite. He gave me a great grade. He gave me a really bad grade. And then he said he retired and he didn't care about this issue. And I just died in my soul. I just died. And I said, if I was that smart or pretending to be that smart in anything, there's no way. He did property. He did property. He did environmental law. How do you stay away from Dakota Pipeline? That's like 2 out of 4 issues. You don't do that. You can't. You're actually an expert in 2 out of the 4 issues. And I said, I love you, and that's gross. I'm like, that's gross. Anyway, call him out if you're close to him. Call him out. Mention my name.
What?
Sure, go ahead. I'll show up. It's fine.
Oh,
I'll tell him you
Oh, Lord.
Or no, I won't tell him that. I'll be like, I love you the most. I'm glad you got on board. Because if you call me, I'm assuming you got on board. But anyway, it's so bad. It's like, but we actually, no, I talked about that. And other people did too. It's sort of like if you believe in something that you believe in, and then you think they swayed from what you believe in, there's a certain extent that you can say, yeah, I'm all right with that. But then there's another point that you can be like, I'm really disappointed the people I believed in the most deviated that far. And that's where I think so funny. It's so funny. Thank you. But thanks Tim Black and thanks After Hours for letting me say what I wanted to say.
Okay. Bonnie. How you guys doing? Are you all right?
Hey, Dave.
I'm gonna say something. I don't know what it is, but I don't. How y'all doing? Jesus Christ!
You've been hitting the bottle again, Dave.
I just went through the wormhole. I went through the damn Willy Wonka fucking train. Like, I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Seriously.
Oh, man.
This girl lives near me. I'm scared.
What?
This girl lives in Manhattan. I hope she didn't, like, trace my phone call.
Oh, wow.
God have mercy. Holy shit.
I don't know what it is. We're all tired, and I'm kind of wondering how much that's contributing. Do you think?
Yeah.
Holy hell!
Shoot.
I'm glad you guys stuck around for me.
I'm not high or drunk. I'm just naturally nuts.
Exactly. Holy crap!
There's
Brock,
actually
you held in, brother. I gotta say, congratulations.
I didn't hold in. I muted my camera then and fell apart laughing a couple of times. I just was kind of dying.
I held in.
Oh my God.
I can't even say anything that made me laugh.
It was difficult to follow. That was my problem.
What the whole thing with Manson didn't get a fair trial. I'm like, what the fuck?
I was a little
Seriously?
slow in the head.
No.
So I was trying to understand it myself.
It wasn't Manson. It was,
no, it was
his cohorts or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she didn't know Manson well enough, but she was giving him a fair. I need to know. I mean, the criminal justice system. My God, no wonder everything's screwed. Holy crap! Hopefully, there's no 3 o'clock in the morning cases. Oh, I'd like to see her in Night Court with Harry Anderson. Oh, yeah.
Yes, I do though. I know it's a little weird to talk about with his ears on. It makes it a little bit nuts. But yeah, no, I actually do have I've got an interest in that kind of thing, forensics and criminology, and I think it's maybe if you attribute it to astrology, it's the Scorpio midheaven, so I am interested in uncovering, secrets and psychological issues. It's a thing. It really is a thing for me. It's partly why I like being an astrologer. There's a lot of psychology to it, and the lady that I studied astrology with was a certified psychologist. So it's, she really connected the two for me.
Okay.
And yeah, so there's a lot of interesting things. I think that me and Ebon might have talked about that, or me and somebody, we talked about that, about how, astrology sort of just measures energy, and, talking about the difference between like, or a really evil person's chart, or somebody that was very, very good in the world. And it's interesting how you can see these different energy patterns. Yeah. Hey, Troxney, you need to go sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Go on, take care of us. You don't have to stay. I'm about to get out of here. I should go to bed too.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. I gotta admit, that was fun.
I did my best to understand.
It looks like I missed it.
I'm trying, man. Damn. I got a couple things in with, Coco Van, Bunny Bunsen, Ariel, whatever. I was like, we were on the right track, and then she took the train to, whatever land.
I was trying to I don't know, explain a few things, but I don't know. Anyway, guys.
Yeah.
Love you all so much.
Hey.
Hi.
Have a good night.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks
Bye,
for being
guys.
my online
We'll
family.
continue tomorrow with Anything Goes.
Take it easy.
I'm gonna take off.
Take it.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Time for.
Night.
What did you say, Ariel?
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you
Good
guys tomorrow.
night. See you tomorrow.